We're live now?
Yep.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number 2 of Into the Void. I'm Dave from Bigfoot and More. This is my friend Cornell from the No Such Thing podcast. And tonight we have with us Brent from the Tall Ones, all the way from Washington State. How you doing, Brent?
Doing very good. Thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
Hey, you bet. Well, hey, thanks for coming on this Sunday evening. Cornell, do you have anything you wanted to ask right off, or just jump right in?
Well, I had Brent on what seems like yesterday, and I did go over a lot of stuff with him. Now, I do want to mention the elephant in the room before we even start, and I did already mention this, but we're not going to be discussing Porkygate. There's enough people talking about it, and there will be for a long time, and Brent has explained his position on it. So we have plenty of other stuff to talk about, so we're going to go over all of that. That's about it. So I guess I don't want to go over all the same questions I already asked you, Brent, about how you got into Bigfoot and stuff. Maybe Dave could start with that to open up a new perspective on stuff that I didn't ask already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, one thing I noticed, Brent, I'm studying your channel a little bit. You're a pretty critical thinker as far as, and I mean that in a positive way. You're a person that looks like you look at the evidence for certain things and come to your own conclusion and stick with it, whether it's popular in the scheme of things or not, about certain things, even when it's often not the most popular opinion that's out there. So I appreciate that. We don't always hear what we want to hear about certain footage that we seem to hold dear and all of that. And I guess the most famous one that we talked about, or has been for a long time, is a Patterson-Gimlin film.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a really good piece of footage. I don't think we'll ever know for certain if it's real or not, but it's very good. It's very compelling. Just the whole back history behind it really kind of indicates that we're probably looking at a real animal on there. It just doesn't make sense that two broke cowboys, no money, going to go 3 weeks out of state, spending money they don't have. You know, how do you pass that off to your wife? Like, hey, sorry, I'm going to drain my bank account, go look for Bigfoot. So, it doesn't make any sense as far as that, because they could have just stayed in Washington State, went right over the mountains to Mount St. Helens and shot their footage there, which would be more believable there, because it's got such a long history with Bigfoot that it would be a no-brainer. But no, they went out of state and spent all those resources and time, 3 weeks lost of work too, and that there kind of shows that it doesn't seem like it's a hoax, because if it was a hoax, they wouldn't spend as much resources that they don't have on the hoax. And just also talking to people who was there at the site shortly after the film was shot was also reassuring as well, because what they talked about and how the track line continued, and there's still so much more to the story that it's good to keep an open mind about it, but we'll never know. But I'm leaning towards it being a real animal, and they just got lucky that I think that the creek kind of masked the sound of them, and maybe they were downwind or whatever, and they just got lucky, and the Bigfoot just kind of walked away. And makes you wonder if it was walking away in that way to draw the attention from something more valuable to the Bigfoot, like maybe a juvenile or something, because I believe there was other prints that was found around the Bluff Creek area that sent Bob and Roger down to that area. So there are multiple, so it could be a family basically. So it's possible the mother was just taking attention away from what was nested down right over here, and that's why it acted in such an unusual way of like, hey, look at me, I'm walking this way. So for me, that's it's very compelling. We'll never know if it comes out to be a hoax. It's not going to change my passion or pursuit in the subject. I find it very compelling, and I find Bob very genuine. I mean, I met him a couple of times, and he's just a great guy. Yeah. Like I say, if it's a hoax, it's a very, very, very good one that I'm beyond impressed with. Everybody would be unimpressed with.
Well, that
Yeah,
makes all
well,
the difference too. If you have looked Bob in the eyes and you have sat and had a conversation with him,
Yeah,
that,
well, I didn't.
that makes
Yeah,
all
I
the
didn't.
difference.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't specifically, grill him about that, but just talking to him about a bunch of other stuff, you really get a sense of who somebody is, and that's that's something that I have a gift or whatever to do is really kind of pick up on subtle things and pick up on people and pick up on these nuances and able to bring that to a conclusion that I come up with, and so yeah, I didn't specifically ask him about it, but everything, I mean, I've seen him talk about it, and just who he is as a person, it just doesn't seem like he would be part of a hoax at all.
Yeah, like we talked about a little bit before we went live. I mean, if that does turn out to be a fake, what an amazing job for a couple of broke cowboys to pull off in 1967 with such primitive camera equipment. I mean, that would be almost as unbelievable as just running across a Bigfoot out in the middle of nowhere like that. But yeah,
that's why.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But that's why it's important to, when you come across a piece of evidence, to dig into it, to look into the details. Who was there? What's their history? Are they credible? What's the other evidence that supports this? There's so many more components involved that's going to help you reach the conclusion of, what if it's real or not, or help reaffirm your belief of if it's real. Because, like I say, we'll never find out for sure if that particular subject on there is real or not.
Yeah. Well, and something in recent years has come out, and I noticed you addressed this in one of your videos concerning it. It's called the Bluff Creek Massacre, that apparently some Sasquatch kill team from Canada come down and murdered Patty's baby and blah, 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 and blah.
Yeah.
And I noticed that's a very popular video. You got more dislikes than likes on it. So,
yeah.
A lot of people are really committed to believing there was a Bluff Creek Massacre in which soldiers killed Bigfoots there.
Yeah, it comes down to it. It's good to not take something for face value, because the person that's telling you this story could be priming you up, and it's just their belief. And that's why we have to be responsible with ourselves on what we believe from these people that are telling us this stuff. Because, I mean, anybody looks into the Bluff Creek Massacre, it's such a joke that I'm surprised it even got retreaded like this. And, it's really unfortunate that misinformation like that gets spread, and nobody really supports it except for the people who are saying it at the time, the influencers, and the people that they influence. And after a while, that kind of fervor dies down to the point where it goes into obscurity again, only to come back in another year or two.
And I don't even know who started that. I just heard about it over the last couple of years. Now,
it was MK
one
Davis.
of the names, was it MK Davis that started it?
I think.
Yeah,
so.
MK Davis is the one he got the apparently the first gen footage from Mrs. Patterson herself, and went over that footage and came to the conclusion that there was a massacre and all this stuff happened. And so MK was the one who initially came out with this hypothesis, and then someone like Steve Isdell, the How to Hunt dude, he promoted it as fact, added in his own commentary, which he has a flair for doing, which Bob got death threats from it. It's like,
really?
Yeah, that's what Russ Accord was saying when he, because at that time him and Bob were working closely together, and Bob was getting death threats because he thought that he wouldn't kill a family of Bigfoots. And just goes to show you the insanity that this subject can have with it, and how scary it can be too.
There's somebody at my door, guys. Just 1 second, okay? Sorry.
But yeah, I mean,
that's very unfortunate. Bob, he's pushing 90 years old.
Yeah, he's still spry though, man.
I mean, I'd like to meet him. He seems like a very genuine individual. But that story really got legs and ran. One of the names that is associated with that is a lady named Bobby Short. And thing is, back 20 years ago, I helped the Travel Channel make a documentary on Bigfoot sightings in Oklahoma. And during that time, I spoke many times with Bobby Short on the telephone. And if she later knew about anything like that, at that time she did not, because we spoke about the Patterson-Gimlin film a few times, and all that she had to say about it in the early 2000s was she believed it was real, which I do too. So, but yeah, that's another one of the later controversies that's come up, I guess, and it's become a popular story, and apparently unpopular not to think it's real. But anyway, honest investigation, you should be able to follow the facts to where they go, and accept it for what the truth is.
Yeah, well, that's my whole thing is, I'm not like a skeptic or out to disprove Bigfoot. I would love to see one. I wouldn't spend so much time and resources into the subject if I didn't have some sort of inkling about the subject itself. So, but I just like to know what's real and not, so I know which way to go with my own investigation. That's my whole thing, is like, I just want to know what's real or not. And I'm getting so much better at picking stuff out, as far as, really sharpening my investigation into how to really kind of go about to figure out what's real and what's not real. And I try to help other people and maybe explain my journey to them so they can kind of help figure out for themselves what's real, what's not, because we should really help develop tools for us all to figure out what's real or not. So we don't have one authority person saying, hey, this is real, this isn't real. We want to be able to have the information and intelligence to make up our own mind and have it be, made up off of good information that's solid and not something that's wishy-washy because somebody believes it because they're so primed up on the subject that everything's Bigfoot to them. So that's my whole thing. Is I'm just trying to find out what's right and what's not, and I try to be as honest as I can. I think integrity is one of the most important things in life, because if you don't have that, then are you even worth knowing, type of thing. It's
right.
So it's that's my whole thing. It's not like I'm a critical thinker out there trying to be a gatekeeper or whatever. It's just I have a big passion for this subject, and I don't like it when people are deceitful in it, because I was deceived before and it's not a good feeling. And so I just try to bring awareness to it, and it's not always favorable. I definitely lose subscribers over my opinion, but I'm learning to better better explain how, or just better communicate to people, so there's no misunderstandings of what I'm trying to say. So people don't misjudge or whatever.
Yeah, it's a fine line without sounding like a dick. You have to, put your point across in a diplomatic way and try to be as nice as possible about it. Especially to people who are just maybe mistaken and not hoaxing and stuff. I wanted to ask you about, now, this thread comes up on the Facebook groups and Reddit, and these things get recycled. You've seen that, footage will get recycled and people will argue about it and stuff. But one of the things I was addressing on Reddit was someone had posted this story about the little boy who spent 3 days with a bear. And I'd spoken to you about that. And some guy, he actually has a podcast, some paranormal podcast. He posted it. And I'm like, that story's not what it seems, dude. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I have a friend that did some investigation into this. And he found other information that conflicts with the official story. And he's like, well, you have a link? And I'm like, well, no, I don't have a link. But he told me, and he's pretty, he's pretty good at this stuff. And there's not one link that can describe it, but he has followed this up and he's got information from different sources. And this is kind of the gist of the story. Can we go over that? Or is it libelous or something? Or, you know what I mean? About the official story, even though they're, you know what I mean? The official story is at odds with what actually happened.
No, do you know more about that than I do? Apparently.
He does, yes.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I got
So
to hear this.
yeah, so as everybody knows of, I think Casey Hathaway, he went missing
Mhm.
and was gone for 3 days in sub-freezing weather where he could not have
West
survived. Huh?
West
North
Virginia or North
Carolina.
Carolina, somewhere in there.
Yeah, yeah, and it was the weather at night was going to be he wouldn't have survived on his own outside in the elements pretty much, and so yeah, that's what the story was. Is he when he was found, he said that he was with a bear, uh, but what was not reported as much was that he actually said it was a purple bear. That was first reported because you know uh, you know I followed this story like very very closely when it happened and stuff, and just because it's so interesting, and I deal with missing people and stuff, so I followed it, and so so here's what's kind of happened is story first broke that he was found and he was with a bear that had purple hair. The purple part got dropped, and it just went with that he was with a bear. Well, I talked to I came across a screenshot, or I came across an article that talked about how the family said that the little boy was found. This is like this article was breaking because it came from a reporter that was on the scene there. And he said that the family reported that the little boy was found and he was with a man, right? So Bigfoot, our bear, wasn't even mentioned at that time. And so that's kind of, people are that comment there went away. That I've only found it in one place, and that's from this one reporter that's based down in there. And the Bigfoot community just went with it, kind of assumed that the whole thing was Bigfoot just kind of helping the little boy out and survive, because the little boy was found a couple of days later, not exposed to the elements like he would have been if he was just out there in the open, or if he was in a den bear. He was actually he had very few scrapes. He didn't have hyperthermia or anything. He was just thirsty. He wasn't even really hungry or anything. The place that he was found, people are saying, "Oh, it was so impossible to get to." In fact, it wasn't. It was just right off the main road there, and it depends upon how you approach it. If you approach it from one angle, you have to go through all these thorn bushes and through a little marshy area, which like no kid would ever go through there. But if you go around the back area, easily accessible, and so people are like, "Wow, that's Bigfoot." He dumped a little boy off there, and it was a bear, because the bear just kept getting repeated. It was headline news: little boy saved by a bear, and which drove everybody crazy and stuff, as far as it's got to be Bigfoot.
And
So
it became legend.
yeah, it became legend. So I started looking into it a little bit more, and you can do a lot with Google, just using various searches, using different terms in the search, and you can also use
Go.
yeah, there's other search engines too that will pull up other information that Google won't readily display on their first or second page, like Microsoft Internet Explorer. That's the one. So you use all these different options there, and you can start typing in Casey Hathaway found, or Casey Hathaway, just type in all these different options. And that's when I started to pull up all these Reddit threads, and I came across forums that was talking about this. Someone that was a search and rescue talking about they were there. And so what actually probably happened, and this is a hypothesis that I put together from all this information I collected, which, honestly, I was going to do a video about this whole thing, because it was like a couple of years ago when I came across all this information. I was going to do a video about it, but I just felt really bad because so many people believed it, and it was like I was taking away Christmas. You're like the Grinch. It's like everybody has this heartwarming story of a Bigfoot helping. It's like, man, do I got to be that dude that's going to be like, "Hey guys, Santa Claus isn't real." Nobody really wants to be that person. So I was just like, whatever, and just kind of let it go. And only now has it come up more, where it's like, yeah, I probably should have done it. So it's something that I think I'm going to do here in the next future, just to kind of get it done, get all the information I collected out there, just whatever. So anyways, yeah, and I still had the screenshot from that first initial post, and I had the reporter's information. So I contacted him and just got a response back, and yeah, he was surprised people went the Bigfoot route. It just kind of goes to show you perspectives. If you have Bigfoot on the brain, then you're going to go towards Bigfoot. But if Bigfoot isn't in your reality, it's like, wow, you actually went there. You actually thought that.
There's
so Brent,
one of our Johnny Hath. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say. So
I was just saying.
No, you go first. You go first. No,
I was going to say Johnny Hath over here in the comments said a lady heard him crying and called rescue officials, and that area was already searched.
Yep. Well, it was only like 100 yards or so from his house. It wasn't that far from his house where he was actually found. So here's the thing. Here is my hypothesis. I believe he was abducted by a mentally challenged neighbor named Bear that was trying to play with the kids earlier in the week, but the parents told him no. And so the grandmother was actually watching the kids because I believe the mother was in jail at the time because the family has issues, are known to law enforcement locally, and the community knows them. So the mother was watching, or the grandmother was watching the kids, and she wasn't really watching them, and that's when the abduction happened. And so they went back to his place, and there, I cannot remember the name of the cartoon right now, but it's a purple bear. It has a purple bear as the main cartoon or whatever. So it's possible that he watched cartoons the entire time he was gone, and was deposited back there at that location because of things really got really heated and stuff. And I believe that the father helped the mentally challenged son help cover it up by
Care Bears.
I don't think it's Care Bears. It's a specific blue bear. It's really popular with. It's like for small kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would have to check it.
Yeah.
So they deposited the kid there and was allowed to be found, and he was found very, very quickly because he wasn't really exposed to the elements very long. He had some scratches and stuff on him, but he easily could have got that after he was dropped off. He wasn't hungry. He was thirsty. And that's kind of what I believed happened to the little boy down there. And I talked to the reporter down there, and he kind of gave some more information of like the local. That's how I kind of found out like the family they were known to law enforcement. They actually had a GoFundMe that was set up after he was found, but was shut down because they wanted to try and get a bear erected in the city center.
Oh man!
And so there's this GoFundMe scandal going that's associated with it because, again, the family doesn't seem like they were on the up and up and trying to exploit it. But you notice there's no follow-up interviews with the boy saying, "Oh wow, your magical story. You were with a bear the entire time. Why, was on Oprah or Ellen or anything like that, for such a magical story." It just went away. And that's it. It just went away. And all that's left is the story, but there's a lot of information that you can collect, and I'll be able to provide all the sources of what I'm talking about. And I'll do a video on it just to show, hey, I'm not just making stuff up. Just to kind of fully explain it, because it is something that people do believe is one thing when in reality it's another. But it's such a heartwarming story that it's like, man, got to be that person though, I guess, to really fully explain it.
You're no fun.
Yeah, I've been told that. Like, I thought I'm way too serious for this subject.
That's very relevant information.
And I didn't, and I forgot to mention that the mother directly went towards Bear, this mentally challenged son. That the mother, search and rescue person, was talking about how the mother was freaking out early on, that they had to keep her away from cameras and stuff because she was just freaking out and accusing the neighbor of like, hey, they abducted them and stuff. And so And what was the other thing? I can't remember now. Something else that was really interesting of it. I can't remember.
It'll come back.
Well, we need people like you to, because I'm too lazy to do this kind of stuff. But that's amazing, because you go into these Facebook groups, and like I said before, it becomes legend in the Bigfoot community, you know, and we see these things as, you know, protectors of children and friendly forest giants, and it gets mixed in with this new age thinking and stuff. And of course, Matthew Johnson is the pinnacle of this whole thing. You know, someone posted earlier about what's his book there. He's got a book. It's like $100 on Amazon. He told me he would send it for free, but he never did. I wanted to read it and interview him after, because I heard his account. I heard his encounter, and that's when I first heard of him, and it was amazing. The encounter was he was like, he broke down and stuff, and I found it pretty credible.
Matt Johnson?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I joined his Facebook group, and I started to see, you know, he was releasing videos of these audio samples of the Xanue predicting Trump's victory in the election, and us being like invaded by the communists. And he was interpreting these, you know, what's the word for it? When you do audio, when you audio, what's the word for it when you can see the audio spikes and stuff?
The spectrograph.
Yeah, spectrograph. Yeah, and he was interpreting it as the Reds were coming to get us, and Trump was going to win the election. I'm paraphrasing, but
yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, he kind of added his own personal. Well, I'm sure this whole thing is all personal that he added to it, but yeah, it seems like it's interesting when they add their own little personal beliefs in with what these Xanue are supposed to be thinking and saying and feeling, and you know, it just kind of goes to, it's just an example people can use to see how his research isn't really that reliable. When I first got into this subject about 6 years ago, that was actually my first stop, was the Matt Johnson camp. That was pre-books, pre-Xanue. This was right around when Adam Davies had his portal event, that whole incident that happened. And I just thought, wow, here's a two third-party people that have no real association with Matt Johnson claiming a portal opened up at his Bigfoot area. And honestly, I was so gullible at the time that I was going to pay Matt, you know, I was going to offer him like $1,000 to come show me a Bigfoot, because I just wanted to see one. It's like, man, I'd rather pay $1,000. If I could pay somebody $1,000 to go see a Bigfoot, I'd do it. So
I would too.
But I never got to that point of asking him, because then I started to realize maybe he's not such the best source, and you know, started listening more what other people were trying to tell me about him, which at first I rejected because I thought they were trolls and just, you know, jealous, and you know, they just didn't like him, and I thought those other people were jerks. But no, they were just actually trying to inform me, get me more information about him, and which I checked out, which ended up being true. And it's like, yeah, it kind of takes away that trust in that person. But yeah, that was my first stop, was the Matt Johnson train, and it was all because of Adam Davies and John Carlson and their portal event. And I still don't know what to make of it, but I don't feel as confident that it happened the way they probably say it happened.
I don't know those guys. Dave, do you know those guys?
Yeah, no. But the original encounter that Matt Johnson, I remember when that first came out, and I thought, man, that's, you know, here's a doctor, seemed genuinely shook up. But I thought, man, that was it. But then the whole Xanue thing, and I've mentioned this, Cornell, before. Why do all these things, when they get names, it always sounds like something out of a 1950s sci-fi movie?
Zod and Zord.
And who would have thought
Scientology.
Who would have thought Bigfoot was involved in American politics?
Oh, I know.
I don't even want to be involved in American politics right now the way it is. But,
oh no, I hear you.
Yeah. Well, there's somebody over here giving you some good-natured ribbing, I think. Do you know somebody, Sasquatch out of the shadows, said Brent is a buzzkill. Who needs critical thinking and Bigfootery? That's just for trolls.
That is Alexander, and he's going to be on our show pretty soon, Dave. He's good shit.
Yeah, he did.
He did
Yeah,
say,
he did
oh,
that.
yeah, obviously, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, he did the small town monsters. The last one. Man, that is. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, geez, man.
Yeah.
That guy. He is going to be a very cool future filmmaker, especially with documentarians and stuff. I mean, he put that together very, very well. Very impressive. If you guys haven't done that, and it's boots on the ground.
He did Lions of the East too, about mountain lions in New England. That was fantastic.
I haven't had a chance to look at that. I actually just recently came across them, and it's weird how it's like people like that will just kind of get through my radar. It's just weird.
Now,
but yeah, I want to check that out too.
Here's something he brought up. Sasquatch Out of the Shadow says, wasn't there something about Johnson having a head injury?
Yep.
And said his sighting at the Oregon Caves was prior to that.
Yes.
Thomas calls it Ivan Mark syndrome. So it's something that he might have had an incident, maybe not. And then he just is really chasing that Bigfoot narrative and theme and dopamine hit. And creating all this fantastical stuff. And then, it makes you wonder if the head injury is kind of like adding to the delusion.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, nice. I can't wait. That's going to be good.
Yeah.
We love your stuff, Alexander.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big fans.
Absolutely. So.
He was one of my first interviews, Alexander. He was one of my first Bigfoot interviews, him and Crystal Panic from New Hampshire. And that's when I started getting really into the Bigfoot thing, because I'm like, wow, here's these guys. Him and Crystal were like so sensible and put forward a great argument. And I just got hooked on more and more Bigfoot stuff, because I'm like, wow, it's not just a bunch of crap after all. There could be something to this, And it just expanded from there,
Yeah, they are good. Like with the small town monster stuff that he's doing with them and stuff. I mean, that's a really good representation of the Bigfoot subject for people that are on the outside looking in. It's amazing. And it's a perfect thing for him. And I always encourage people to share stuff like that as much as possible.
Bridge.
Yeah, very, very much so. Well done. I look forward to the future.
Blue Line Bigfoot showed up. How you guys doing? Way up there in New York State.
On the other side of the country.
Cornell up there. Yeah.
Blue Line Bigfoot. I've never heard of those guys.
Let's see. And now notice one of your, and I think I bring this up to say this. I think this is very, very important to look into. You put one of your videos up, just a recording of a barred owl.
Oh, yeah.
And brings up there's so many different animals' vocalizations that are mistaken for Bigfoot or attributed to Bigfoot. The barred owl, I remember when Cornell came down first. Cornell, it was this month exactly a year ago when you come down here to Oklahoma. Yeah. And we got a late start. We went down to the mountain. We got the campsite down in the Comissi's, 11:30.
I don't know, but I was crapping myself. It was so dark.
It was, I love it down there. Anyway, I don't know what I was doing, getting stuff out of the truck or something. Cornell, I remember, was standing facing the trees, and this owl just let out this wah, and it was just powerful. And Cornell, he didn't move, man. I give him that. He just goes, what the hell was that? And, but yeah, and I've even heard there's a guy that did a bicycle trip from the north all the way down to Florida. And he stopped in on the highway in Georgia. There was a Bigfoot museum. And I remember he pushing a button, it would play a Bigfoot vocalization. And he pushed that button, said Bigfoot vocalization. I said, that's a red fox.
Whoops.
And they do. They sound like a person kind of scream. So, I think it's, that being said, you putting up a video like that with those sounds, if somebody's going to go out in the woods looking for evidence, you need to really get acquainted with the natural wildlife vocalizations that you will probably hear.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a lot of creepy sounding things out there.
Yeah, I mean that's why I kind of posted it, is just to help just as a teaching tool, so people can use it as like, hey, okay, so if I come across this, I'll know more what it is. And I just want to say that Steve with Curious Cryptid is the one who did the enhancement of that owl sound. I just want to give him credit for that because he did an amazing job for it. He was actually with me that night that we recorded it because we were out investigating this high interest area where a ton of Bigfoot activity has been going on. And so we were just out there in the middle of the night, and we were sitting there talking, and then all of a sudden this owl, it just sounded like two Bigfoots communicating to each other at the time. And that's exactly what it sounded like, a male and a female yelling at each other. I didn't hear the sound of the owl in the middle at that particular time. So Steve left because he was bouncing out because he was only there for a short amount of time because he had other stuff to go do. So I was there left by myself. It's like, geez, man, I wonder if that is a Bigfoot. And here I am all by myself out in the middle of nowhere. And then I had this mouse break into my car, and that was quite the ordeal. And had to get this mouse out of my car, which was actually yeah, it was a fun night. But yeah, that's how we recorded that. And it ended up, after further review, once we went over it and able to clean it up and find similar sounds, it was an owl. But if we didn't record it at that particular time and didn't have the option to play it back, we probably would have thought that it was a Bigfoot's yelling at each other. We probably would have thought that. But that's why it's always good to record whenever you're going out. Just have, I like to do a triangulation where you have them strategically set around camps. So if you have something coming in, you'll be able to better dial it in on the direction, which way it's coming, and all that fun stuff. And you'll be able to collect a lot more information of your investigation by using sound, because you'll be able to hear what's out there in the forest, what's coming, what's going. And it's a very passive thing, but it's also open for interpretation as well at times, where people can make a wrong interpretation because it came across the coyote sound that they weren't familiar with. And actually, earlier this year, I was at the same area doing an overnight, and I recorded it was during a full moon, a coyote serenade, and it was just a coyote just going off, and within that sound was the Puyallup screamer. The coyote, the Puyallup screamer, the Snohomish screamer. It's a coyote that Thomas Steenberg was able to properly vet out, because he saw the coyote making the Puyallup screamer noise and the Snohomish screamer noise. So he saw that, but I was able to record the same sounds and stuff of the coyote making these unusual sounds, which sounds like something screaming out there, but it's just the coyote. So coyotes make over 150 different sounds by themselves. 150, that's a lot. So whenever
right outside my window.
Yeah, so whenever somebody says, "Oh, I know, I've been out in the forest my whole life, I know what coyotes sound like," no, you don't. Even wildlife biologists who are trained specifically in coyotes admit that they are still learning their social dynamics and all the calls and sounds that they do, the facial expressions and how they communicate with each other, and they have rare calls, and that's why it's important to, if you get something on audio recording and you can't figure it out, there's going to be people out there that can help you figure it out, either in your circle of friends or leaving the circle of friends by going to trained experts in wildlife biology or all these different fields. Take it to your local zoo and to a specialist there to say, "Hey guys, what do you think?" I wouldn't recommend going in saying, "Hey guys, I have Bigfoot video or I have Bigfoot audio. Come check it out," because you don't want to come off as crazy,
Right.
So you got to have some tact when you're doing it. But we should always, nothing should ever be unknown. We should, for the most part, be able to fully, properly vet it out. The only problem is some people don't like what it's ended up being, because they wanted it to be a Bigfoot so much because they're so emotionally attached to the evidence that when they're told, oh, I'm a coyote expert and it's actually a coyote, they have a hard time believing that person because they're so invested in that evidence to the point where, you can't change their mind because they don't want to change. They just want to keep believing it's a Bigfoot. And that's more common than not in the subject, because I encounter it quite often where it's like you could show somebody the evidence and they'll just be like, nah, I'm going to still believe this other thing that has it's not really verified, but I just want to kind of believe it anyways because it makes me feel good.
And Cornell and I had a similar thing like that. And sometimes when you're out in the woods, you hear something through the trees at a distance. It's distorted a certain way. And we were hearing, and Cornell had a really good recording device. But at the time, it was two different things, and they was chattering very angrily at each other. But it was far enough distance. We're like, well, that's pretty curious. But when Cornell gets the recording back and amplifies it out, it turns out it's a couple of raccoons pretty angry with each other. Now, we could have just as easily got too invested in that, and maybe, no, that's a couple of Bigfoots imitating a couple of angry raccoons. or maybe it was two angry raccoons imitating two angry Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Then we got these. Oh, go ahead.
Or you could have gone through a long period of time of not knowing it was raccoons and just assuming it was Bigfoot, and have that whole belief and emotional attachment. And then when somebody tells you, hey, those are raccoons, you'll be like, no, that's Bigfoot.
Well, there was two things that on my recordings that got me. There was we had thumps, like tree knocks. It sounded like tree knocks. It was like thumps off in the distance. It was like woomph, like just one, and it kept happening on the recordings. Then there was like a very loud whoop, and I mean it was a whoop. I mean, if you've ever heard one, and I posted it to Facebook, and I still got tore apart. I mean, and people were saying, "Oh, that's a woman or something." And I'm like, you have to have seen where we were, for it to be a woman, some kind of crackhead or something.
Well, I mean, there's woman Bigfoots, right? So,
right. So it could have been a female. I don't know, but I'm not familiar with all of this stuff. But I'm like, where we walked around the place, and it was before hunting season or after hunting season, and there was just nobody around. This place was in the middle of nowhere, and there was just no way there was some chick running about in the forest making Bigfoot whooping signs. So it goes the other way too,
Yeah, well, that's why I've had what a lot of people say Bigfoot encounters or Bigfoot experiences, like wood knocking with something out in the forest, back and forth, with a group of people having those wood knocks. I mean, coming across wood knocks is pretty common now. But, I've had a lot of this different stuff that a lot of people be like, dude, that's Bigfoot. And I still don't label it as Bigfoot. I just still label it as undetermined. I don't know, because I didn't find the source. That there will actually help me stay grounded too, because I'm not running away, creating a narrative off of something that might not be true, because I don't have enough evidence to show that it was actually Bigfoot. For all I know, there could have been some homeless person way out in the remotest of woods where we were, that I didn't even know about, and just some strange miracle, they just ended up there, and we just totally missed them and all that. So that's an equal possibility as well, versus it just being a Bigfoot.
I got to throw this in, and I actually know this person, Five Head. He actually lives, he comes to my shop quite a bit, lives down by Lawton, I believe. But he said a crackhead in the wild scares me more than Bigfoot.
That's why I carry a gun.
Yeah, me too. I was in law enforcement for 10 years, so you get to deal with a few of them, and somebody's asked me, why do you carry a firearm? You afraid of Bigfoot? I'm like, no, that's really not entering my mind. I mean, if Bigfoot's out to get us, he's very bad at it, because he's just not people, and there's a lot of stories about Bigfoot doing mean things or whatever, but are they credible? I mean, even if you look at the old story of the Mount St. Helens incident, I mean, what's the first thing that happens? They shot one. Even the old story shared by Teddy Roosevelt and Wilderness Hunter, they shot at it first. So, I mean, and then is that real? But, I don't think he's very good at it if he's really out to get us and they're out there, so.
Yeah, it just doesn't
But
seem like
no,
Bigfoot is out to get us.
no, I don't worry at all. I can't. This area that Cornell and I have gone to, there have been sightings there. One by me just a couple of years ago, actually, but it wasn't very big. It was smaller, and it was standing across a creek at the edge of some trees from me about dusk. And before that, a man had been riding horseback down there, and one of these things had walked out in the trail in front of him. That was back in 2003. So we were in an area that is known for that. So that could have been one of those giving a whoop, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing to do is file that, and as a sound that you came across at this particular area, and try and build more off of it as far as going out. Maybe you'll see the Bigfoot doing the whoop and stuff. But for me, I never tried to label anything Bigfoot, just to help keep my confirmation bias and priming, just to keep that under control. Because even though I'm fully aware of priming and confirmation bias, how the whole process works, I could still get it, and it's a fight sometimes to fight that off, because you go out with all these people who influence you because they've had experiences and stuff, and it's like some of them you believe, some of them you don't, and it's just really important to stay grounded so you don't go get lost in the story. And that's why I always recommend people to restart their investigation as well, because sometimes they might collect a bias or two along the way that's kind of altering their trajectory, and maybe that alteration to their trajectory is going to send them on a path that's going to take them nowhere, and it's wasting a lot of time and resources and stuff. And that's why it's best to kind of restart it back up and look at it from a fresh perspective, and try and maintain that perspective all the way through to your investigation. Because my whole goal is to see one. That's really my whole goal in this whole thing, is to see one. I'm going to try my best to collect evidence along the way. I mean, when I got into this, I didn't know I wasn't going to be an investigator. I didn't know I had to be an investigator. I didn't know I had to learn all these different things in life to look at Bigfoot, as far as like, oh, I got to now learn the ecology and learn human psychology and all the nature forest stuff. And I didn't know I didn't know I had to learn all this stuff to investigate the subject. But ultimately it comes down to, our mindset of when we go in and actually are seriously looking and investigating this, the mindset of when we do it is so important and is so overlooked that it derails people's investigations to the point they'll take them down those wrong paths, or they just leave the subject altogether.
Did you say earlier that or did I misunderstand you? Something about you were involved in finding missing people?
Yeah. Once I found out about the Bigfoot tree was not real, it was really incredibly disappointing. Like I was pretty much left the Bigfoot community at that time. I was pretty much done with it, because I was like, I didn't get any support at that time. I went on a podcast and got ripped apart saying, why are you doing that? Why are you going and, you didn't need to go do that, as far as like tell people that a hoax was going on. And it's like, I got ripped apart for doing it. I was told I was going to be blacklisted in the whole Bigfoot community, and how nobody's ever going to associate with me and all this stuff. And it was like, wow, it's like, this is what the Bigfoot community is, huh? It's just a bunch of enablers. So I was just really turned off by it. And at this time, there's a missing person that came up locally, Sam Sayers. She went on a hike up in an area that, I hike and stuff. And so I started putting my efforts towards that. And because at the time, search and rescue has ended their deployment. So search and rescue gets called out for the deployment. They do the search, and when the deployment ends, that's when private people can come in and search. That's what I was doing. Is I work with the families to go to help after search and rescue ends their deployment, because the people are still there, the family are still there, and it's nothing against search and rescue. They only have so much resources, time, and procedures for a particular case. And when the odds are that the person is deceased, that's when they kind of got to let it go. And so, just through like Facebook and I'm so networked now, but at time it was through Facebook. The family was begging for help. And so it's like, I'm going to go help, because it's like, I know the area and do all that stuff, which is really weird. because on that search, people are reporting like this mysterious odor, like this phantom odor, like Bigfoot odor, you know, throughout this this trail area and stuff, and which is really kind of interesting. And actually came across a rabbit, and it's a high alpine trail, and came across this rabbit ripped in half right in the middle of the trail. It's like, wow, that's a weird place, weird thing to happen. Anyways, but so so that's what kind of got me into it, and from there. I just started helping more, you know, got more networked, and because other people do this as well, and you know, just got more and more networked into it, and you know, became part of groups that are actually like, my God, that Sam Sayers. I'm in a repository group that is still looking for, right, and my God, the work that people, the internet detectives on the ground are just on the internet, what they've done as far as flushing out all the information on that case is amazing. It's I'm so impressed by how people can come together to help find a person and collect all this information. And
what's her name again?
Sam Sayers. Yeah. So
how do you spell that?
Sayers. Yeah, she went missing up in Vesper Peak in 2018, and it was actually one of the biggest searches in Washington history, and it got a lot of attention, you know, and it's an interesting thing because actually, you know, because I was part of the group to help find her, and so it was weird because I kept getting contacted by mediums, like psychics, and like telling me to go search here, search there. She's in a cement basement at this GPS location, and I look at the location. It's like, it's going to take like days to get there, and there's like no buildings there. It's like in the middle of nowhere, and but. So yeah, that's you know, helping the families, you know, look for them. It's really become a growing passion for me, because I've noticed that there's an issue going on from when search and rescue ends their deployment and the private searches start up. There's an issue with getting the information with what search and rescue, all the notes and everything compiled. There's not an easy transfer system over to another organization that could help these families, you know, no charge, to go look for these people. And you know, I'm associated with some really good people that are tirelessly looking for all these missing people. I don't do it as much as they do. It's, you know, I've honestly thought about just leaving the whole Bigfoot thing just to go pursue that, because I get so much more satisfaction in that, just helping them out and stuff. And but you know, I kind of noticed that there's an issue with that transfer over from the end of the deployment. It's like, man, something could be done to help that out, because trying to work with these families, and they're like, yeah, I don't know where search and rescue went, and all this stuff. And I was actually looking at get certified early this year, but you know, there was something that happened in my life that changed a lot of my trajectory of doing something like that, getting certified in that it's just making I got to push it back a little further, but it's something that I want to do, and then maybe work with these other people, local people, and maybe set up a really good organization, a foundation or something that could help these families, you know, because there's a lot of people that go missing every year that don't really get the attention like that Sam Sayers had. She got nationwide attention, yet there's this other lady, you know, equally as important, getting zero attention, and nobody's helping the family or anything, because there's no real system set up for it yet. And so anyways, yeah, that's kind of how that whole thing went about.
That's like, did you ever hear of the Brandon Lawson disappearance? There was a 911 call down in Texas, Abilene, Texas, and he makes a 911 call, and he's known to indulge in methamphetamine. And he makes this 911 call. He had an argument with his wife, Ladessa Lawson, and he drives to his father's house 2 hours away, and then the 911 get a call, and it was like a minute long, and then he disappears. And still to this day, his body hasn't been found. But this 911 call, people have tried to interpret. I love this kind of stuff. But
yeah,
because he seems like he's maybe under the influence, plus he's got a heavy Texas drawl, no one can figure out exactly what he's saying. But he apparently is running through the woods. He's being chased by someone. and there's all these conspiracy theories over it. There's also another one up by me in New Hampshire. Oh, what's her name? She went missing up in Haverhill. I'm sure if Alexander's still here, he'll remember her name. She's got an Irish name, and they never found her. And she was drunk, and she crashed her car and got out of her car and went walking, and then she just disappeared. Oh shit! What was her name? I don't know, Alexander, if you're still here, but you'll know that one. But yeah, the missing people, it happens everywhere. But then we've got this whole narrative of Bigfoot taking people all over the country. And
yeah, well, actually, David Pilates did some videos on some of the missing people I was working on, like some of the cases, and he actually totally misrepresented what actually was going on. He left out information, important information.
Warren Murray, thank you.
He left out important information because he was trying to link these people to this cluster he's trying to create, and it's like, dude, but you're leaving out all this information and you're totally misrepresenting it, and that would help people reach a conclusion that there's no shenanigans going on. It's just some people go missing, and that's what happens. And so that's when I realized, wow, David Pilates is not a very good investigator, because he doesn't seem to be putting the time in to go really investigate these, but he's using their story for profit to help, further his own narrative, which I think is kind of wrong.
Well, Richter calls him out on that, right?
Hey, Mike. Another thing I want to bring up when we're talking, call it a process of elimination on these Bigfoot evidence and stuff. You did a video that I found very interesting. Also, a lot of your videos I found interesting, coming from an investigative way where you're actually bending over these small saplings and making X's and such as that, and showing how trees just, because right now, you watch many videos on this, tree structures is all the rage.
Oh yeah.
So now historically, years ago and way back, 100 years or more, historically, what was considered a Bigfoot marker tree structure was a sapling about 7-8 feet off the ground, twisted and bent in such a way that would eliminate any chance of it being weather related or something other than just having hands to do it. So what is your take on this plethora of just different tree structures that seem to be popping up everywhere?
Yeah. A good explanation for that tree break and twist was a larger animal holding on, grabbing onto it, and it broke. And as he's falling, the weight of the animal or whatever is taking the branch a different way, so that's why it looks like it's being twisted, because it breaks and then is twisting as he's falling to the ground. And that could be an explanation for why trees get, because whenever you try to break a tree like that, you always got to kind of twist it, to try and, anyways, that could be an explanation. But as far as the structures, yeah, it seems like those are quite popular in the Bigfoot community. For me, one of the big markers for me, if trying to determine a structure is a Bigfoot related or not, is the there you go. Is the vulnerable or strategic vulnerability that the structure has. If the structure is out in the open where a predator can come around from any different angle, that's not Bigfoot. They wouldn't, it seems like they don't make mistakes like that, where something's easily found, where there's a vulnerability, something can easily sneak up on them and they don't really have the opportunity to get away. So I think if they make structures, we're not going to find them. We're going to walk right by them and not even realize them, because that's kind of what their whole thing is. Like 10, 12,000 years ago, they had to go run and hide from like the short-faced bear, panthera, and all these true monsters. And so I think that they learned how to adapt and learned how to use the forest to better conceal themselves. Hence why I don't think they cloak. I think they use a blending technique, using their hair and with an understanding of line of sight and all that. I think that they utilize that to their advantage. And so with the structures, It's one of those low hanging fruits that Bigfoot influencers have been pushing for a long time as Bigfoot related, and it's just really kind of unfortunate because if you do the due diligence, you'll find out that some of these TP type structures that no single human could make were actually made by a tribe of Native Americans, 20 years ago, and you're just now finding it and don't realize you're on native land. And Leon with Bigfoot Okanagan, he did a video called Gullible White Guy, where he first believed that, hey, these are Bigfoot structures. And then over the course of the video, he investigates it more and then comes to realize, wow, these are Native Americans, and goes, talks to them and finds out they're actually Native American teepees and stuff. And that was his moment of truth of like, hey, I was wrong about that one. But it's a really good video to help articulate and understand the process of trying to figure out if it's Bigfoot related or not and why likely it's not. With the tree breaks, I mean, it could be. The thing is, we just have to get the information to say, yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's good investigation to do a good process of elimination to what else could it be, whether it's vocalizations, tree breaks, tree structures, or whatever, and not to get so invested in it that you're just horribly disappointed if it does turn out to be something else. Because if it is something else, I don't want to waste my time on it.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think a lot of people, I think my target of people I try to communicate to are the people like me when I first came into this subject that was naive, that didn't really know much, that was gullible. And so I'm trying to talk to those people. And my message is to those people, really, just to maybe help with their learning curve, because maybe one of those people will be the ones to actually go out and get the Bigfoot evidence that we need to blow this wide open, But, we got to make sure people aren't getting stuck on those things that we all really know aren't Bigfoot related. Like Bigfoot isn't making this tree structure out in the open in a city park. That's humans doing bushcraft.
I sent Cornell a picture. I was in a place that they found something that if I'd have just took a picture and sent it in, it would have been all over the internet as a tree structure. I sent the picture to Cornell. Thing that I told him when I sent, I said, this was actually in the middle of a city park in the middle of Edmond, Oklahoma, which is a big city. And obviously some kids have made it or so. Hey, Cornell, before we get off of here, I don't know how much longer you want to go, but I would like to have a little bit where people can ask a question to Brent if they have something to ask him.
We can do that now. Yeah, just put it in caps if you want to ask a question.
I mean, I could come up with stuff for a whole nother segment with Brent, man. This is we should bring him on an investigation with us sometime. He could, blow the lid off everything we do, it sounds like.
In Oklahoma?
Yeah, some people don't like me going for that very reason. It's like, no, man, I don't think you're really hearing that. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've had people unfriend me, like people that I would actually used to go out and investigate in real life, unfriend me because they can't get away with their narrative of what they're trying to create. I'm like, nah, dude, that's actually an owl. That's not a Bigfoot. And, stuff like that, where it's like, you're really deceiving yourself. And people don't like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if anybody has any questions, shoot.
Audrey said Native Americans use tree breaks as trail markers.
The thing is, Bigfoot is the master of the woods, so I don't know. It seems like they would be master trackers too, so I don't know how much signs that they would have to leave their family clan of where they're going, because I think that they know the area really well. It's my hypothesis that they stay in a general square mileage area, it could be 50 square miles, 100 square miles. I mean, I don't know, but I think that they stay in areas that are familiar to them, because if they go to areas that they're not familiar with, they have to learn the whole ecosystem, the whole routines of the humans of that area, and there's a greater chance of them being caught. That's why I think that they just stay and are nomadic in the general area, and they move around enough as to not wear down the area that leads a path straight back to their house. So
they would have to be.
Yeah, it seems like it. And there's areas that I go where you know, people don't go for decades just because there's no reason to. It's inaccessible, and it's such a pain to get to. And because I'm here in Washington State in the North Cascades, and they call this the American Alps because of how you know, with the way the mountains are and all the peaks, and you know, it's a beautiful area. If you know, some really good areas out here.
No, Audrey, I have not. I don't know the people that bought his place. From what I understand, the last I communicated with Mark, he didn't think they were having any continued activity there, but they don't have any children either. And that seemed to be what, when the activity was the most around his property, was like when his kids were present. So since he's moved off, I haven't had any contact with the new owners. So anybody have any question for Brent while we got him here?
So hot.
Yeah, but like I say, my whole thing is just to try and help people with their own investigations so that they can go have a better investigation, present better evidence, and you know, just have a better way of going about it versus blasting something, putting it online, declaring it Bigfoot, and just deleting the negative comments that don't align with your ideology.
There we go. There's a question for you. Do you have a favorite sighting or account from Washington that you've heard?
Yeah, Jay Birch. He had him and his wife had a face to face. You know, Jay really had, you know, direct right there. So he saw it, and you know, there's only so many people I find credible in this subject that I would be like, okay, I trust this person. I trust Jay Birch. My girlfriend and I went down there a few weeks ago to hang out, to go camping, and you know, eat his great food, and at his sighting area. And you know, if Bigfoot, I mean, that's a great spot for Bigfoot. I was doing a night walk with somebody, with one of his friends, Grant Steele, that helps him investigate the area. And we were walking, we heard something out in the forest there, just kind of shadowing us in a little bit. Then all of a sudden we're out there, and we just hear this crush. It sounded like a tree being pushed over. That's the only thing I can equate it to. I've heard a lot of widowmakers fall and branches fall and stuff like that, and it's nothing like that. This was an actual tree, like just being pushed over. And we were talking about it at the time, and he was like, yeah, that could be, we could have spooked an elk that was bedding. And it's like, yeah, it's very possible. So even that, I got to record it. I still have the video. I have to come out with that. Just the tag along from that trip, and another independent video of Jay's encounter sighting. I go along with Jay, and he shows us where he had his encounter, where he had all these different things happen. And if you look on Barbecue Bigfoot and Cookout, Camping Cookout, it's his channel. I'm gonna post one of the videos on there. But yeah, so that's one of my favorite ones is the Washington State, Jay Birch. I find other people credible. You know, it's funny, like, if you guys want to find a really good resource for Bigfoot information, go into your local hiking groups and you just type in Bigfoot in the search engine, and you're going to pull up so much information, because occasionally people will post in there like, hey, what's your scariest experience? Or, hey, have you ever seen a Bigfoot? Sure, there's people on there that are making fun of it and all that stuff. But there's a ton of other people that talk about their experiences that are like, whoa, it's such an untapped resource where if anybody's investigating an area, check out your local hiking group, because you might get some more information in there. And again, if you're also investigating an area, you can use Google Earth on the desktop to actually go back in time on their time-lapse satellite pictures. So you can actually go back decades. So if you're investigating a particular area and want to learn as much about it, use all those resources outside of the Bigfoot community, including like the Google Earth, so you can really dial in your area and understand what's all going in there and going out, and so it will help your investigation, especially the conclusions that you're going to come to. Well, I don't really know if I'm really a researcher. I think I'm somebody that's investigating the whole subject as a whole, which ends up being some of the people involved or some of the claims, evidence or something. but I've been really interested in the subject since 2015. It was actually, again, the Matt Johnson thing. You know, I really, I liked the subject before. You know, I saw the In Search of Harry and the Hendersons was a big influence because I was like 8 years old when that came out, and just fell in love with the lovable character Bigfoot. But it wasn't until 5-6 years ago where I needed a hobby for myself, because I'm a business owner. I have 3 kids, and that was my life. And it still is, but I still needed a hobby that was kind of for my own, and something that I can kind of just have a mindless thing with. And I chose Bigfoot, and it hooked me. And, you know, to the point where I am incredibly passionate about it. And that's why I'm incredibly passionate about making sure we have all the right information out there, so we don't have bad information, we don't believe wrong things, because I am very passionate about this subject. I do believe Bigfoot, you know, is likely out there. We just have to go out there and find them. And that's why I go out and try to put myself in situations, trying different things, different techniques of trying to get what my ultimate goal is a visual sighting. I really need that confirmation. So all these puzzle pieces I collected are going to be put together even more, you know, it's going to be a more of an understanding, and probably help me going forward, you know, with the investigation going forward. But ultimately, yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah, me too.
With that, I probably, you know, you never know what you're gifting. You know, like with the Bigfoot tree, the big thing there was apples and peanut butter. And so whenever you go there, there's like so many apples, and which are feeding the local wildlife and stuff. And here's the thing is, if you're going to gift something, you got to make sure you wipe it off and make sure there's no germs on it, because we have to understand that the Native Americans were wiped out. 95% of them were wiped out because of our germs. So we've got to be mindful of what we're going to have them come in contact with. So if you just go get an apple and just go drop it off there, you might, who knows, if you wipe your nose and then touch the apple, and then next thing you know, you're introducing these germs to the Bigfoots that they've never been exposed to. And the next thing you know, you just wiped out an entire clan unintentionally by leaving a gift that had germs on it.
Want to go back up here to Yeti's uncle. Forgive
go ahead.
me if it was. Can you put that up there? I'm not able to on my end. It says, this is a friend of mine, actually, named Mike. Forgive me if it was discussed earlier. I was late, but was there ever a too close for comfort encounter that chased you out of the woods?
No. I try to condition myself to not be scared out of the woods, you know, and I think a lot of that comes into the mindset. So I do try to condition myself. I go out there by myself, just to try and not be afraid, because that's the thing is, we shouldn't run away when we come in contact with what we're looking for. We need to be in the moment. We need to be rational in the moment, and we need to make good decisions in the moment, so we can kind of, I don't know, make contact or whatever, you know, but we need to not run away. And that's the important thing, is to have the strength to stand there and try to proceed with what you think is going to work at that time. And so, yeah.
You know, what you're saying there, I'm a scuba diver. I'm a certified a search and rescue diver. And one of the acronyms that the instructors always said, you know, you get into trouble, stop, breathe, think, and then act. And that is a good thing to use in this as well, because, you know, somebody asked you about solo. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because you know, you got the fight or flight that's introduced to your body at that particular time, and I'm trying to develop a third route for myself of be calm, cool, like you're saying, take a breath. Let's try and rationally deal with this. I'm not going to be afraid and run away, because as far as I know, Bigfoot is trying to make contact, but we're just so afraid that we run away, and Bigfoot's like, oh, dang, that sucked. Probably not going to try that again or whatever. So, you know, it's important that we do that, and to try and be strong out there. And yeah, I do. Yeah, solo camping yeah. You know, I try to go with people, because it's always better to go with people. But when you're stuck by yourself, that's all you can really do.
I do
the,
a lot of that.
yeah, the important thing is just because where I go, there's no cell signal. So the important thing is just to give exact GPS coordinates where you are to the people in your real life. So, if you don't come back at that designated time, they have an exact place of where you are. And always carry the 10 essentials when you're out there, even if it's for a day outing, because you never know when you're going to break your ankle, and next thing you know, it's like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you're not getting back in time. And you got
what are those? What are the 10 essentials?
You got the whistle, oh man,
You can only name one.
yeah, no, it's well, let me get my.
I want to know this.
Maybe you should have. Maybe you should have just started with 3 essentials.
Yeah. Well, no, it's the 10 essentials for hiking. It's the whistle, the map, the compass. I don't actually have a map and compass. I rely mostly. Yeah, I know. I rely mostly on my cell phone, like my GPS coordinates. Because even though you're out in the wilderness with no cell reception, your GPS, your Google Maps will actually still work, and it'll actually still track your location of where you're going. Whenever you take a picture, it will log the GPS coordinates as well. So if you come across an interesting structure or whatever, you just take a picture of it so you can get the GPS location so you can go back there later. And that's like an amazing resource too, especially if you include it in with a My Map, because that's where you could put a repository for like all the stuff that you found. Because I think somebody was asking about it earlier about if I use maps. Yeah, because what I like is a bird's eye view of like any place that I went, or the stuff that I come across, potential evidence or something. I like to have it all categorized in a bird's eye view in the location of where it's at, and just so it's easily more accessible and readily available. And if you go to My Maps, it's an app that you can download. You can create your own customized map and start populating the map with where you're going, what's the evidence you're finding at that time, and all that stuff. So it's a really good way to help with the investigation going forward.
Here's a question very close to your home, Brent, by Patty. Anything credible to the Mount St. Helens stories of dead Bigfoot bodies?
I would say 0. I don't believe that Bigfoots were found at the Mount St. Helens area. I don't ever see any evidence for it. None at all, actually. So it's just something we're supposed to believe. It just seems like it's something that someone made up, and it's just repeated by other people with no real facts behind it. Like those prints that disappear in the middle of the field, the snow, and it's in the snow, the prints, how they disappear. It's like, oh, well, where did the Bigfoot go? And, you always hear those stories, but I've actually never seen evidence of prints, people saying that, the prints just automatically stop and the Bigfoot's gone. It's like it went up in a UFO or something. You never hear anything like that, or never see anything evidence for like that.
I don't know where I saw it, but I saw a video. I don't remember. It was on YouTube, but basically in the field of snow, just like one single Bigfoot footprint. And I think the guy was insinuating he stepped out of another dimension just to leave that footprint and show him.
Yeah.
I'm not spending my gas money to drive anywhere for that.
Yeah, same here. It's like, probably.
Prove me wrong on it, and I'll be the first to admit it. But
yeah,
right now,
exactly.
Nah.
I'm open, but it's just like, man, I would really need to see that evidence, like the portal opening and stuff. Your thoughts about hoaxers? Yeah, with hoaxing, there's a spectrum that I kind of use of like, you got the low tier, unintentional. They're probably deluding themselves with bad information or whatever. More of the harmless ones that aren't being nefarious about it. Then it kind of starts going up to the point where, whoa, this person's like really being deceitful, getting money for it, and all that. And that's when I usually speak up, especially if I have knowledge about it, or if I have the ability to offer some insight. I always speak up, and I always help people speak up when they come across somebody that's hoaxing or up to no good, because we really need to regulate our own. When it comes to the whole Bigfoot community, we have to have a certain level of integrity, and it's just we're in a subject where there's not a lot known about it. There's not a lot of factual information that we can rely on. So people are able to create stuff of, sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. But for me, I have a problem with the people who are intentionally hoaxing, that are especially influencers that get a lot of people believing it, bad information, usually sometimes to line their own pocket. I looked into the Dogman thing, and I don't believe in the Dogman. It doesn't make sense. It's just one of those things where I don't understand it. Where does it fit in the natural realm of the world? It's like you hear a dogman walking on two legs. Well, it's like that seems like it's just one of those things where, you have the werewolf story going back to dawn of time, but the dogman really kind of became prevalent, I think, in Minnesota. It was a Minnesota news radio place that
Bray
had
Road.
Yeah.
The Bray Road thing.
No, it was it was something. I'd have to revisit it to really kind of, but yeah, I from my understanding, it was a radio broadcast doing some hoax or something. I could be mistaken about it. That was kind of a long time.
Well, I want to throw on the whole dogman thing. That's another popular subject on there, but to me, that is not a viable biological entity, and that would be in the realm of the paranormal.
Yeah,
that's outside of the realm of my study. I'll just leave it.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade. But it is possible for dogman sightings. Maybe it's a Bigfoot wearing a wolf's head, like the Native Americans used to back in the day. Maybe it's a Bigfoot wearing a wolf head, and that's why it looks like a dogman, and people are just misrepresenting it because, I don't know, that's what they do. So that could be a good potential for a dogman.
I've never heard that, but that's something that would make more sense than a bipedal hominid with a dog's head.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, and I'm not being facetious, but a dog man. I mean, to me, when I say it's not a viable biological possibility, I mean, how do they reproduce? Do they have litters like wolves?
Yeah,
what?
That's what I wonder. It's like, where's the dog woman at? Where's the dog kids? Are the dog kids just really wolves? That it's a good fun story that, like with we've seen with the creepypasta stories with Slenderman and that type of stuff, the fictitious stuff, how people can run away with it and create living narratives that people will fully believe in. And that's why I always talk about the importance of developing the tools necessary so we can better vet out what we're receiving, if it's good, solid information. Because I went down the dogman road, really kind of looked into it, and you just start thinking, it's like, man, it just doesn't make any sense that they should exist. But I haven't checked a ton of mines in this area. They're really incredibly dangerous to do. I follow a local mining group that explores mines and stuff, because you can get maps, and I honestly think that mines are a very good place for Bigfoot to be living. There is countless mines in the Pacific Northwest here. Some of them are they were illegal mines, so people don't even know that they exist. And I could see Bigfoot utilizing a mine like that, using a big rock. I'm sure you guys seen the movie The Croods. You know how they use a big rock over the front of their door to keep the animals out. And it's also a good way to put on you can walk right by it. It goes back to how it blends back into the environment, their place. You can walk right by that and not even see that there's a cave entrance there. So I think caves are a very good, very, very realistic option for where Bigfoot is spending their time. And it's possible that they are more, they hibernate of sorts over periods, maybe not months on end, but maybe they can sleep for weeks or something. And, so there's a lot of things in there. As well, I'm sure that there could probably be subgroups within the species itself, kind of like how there's different types of people, humans. I could see it being different types of Bigfoots, but it's still going to be a bipedal, hairy thing that is very, very elusive. So they might look different, but they're still kind of all the same. I don't think that they all look like Patty at all, because you hear different stories of like, oh, this, like it seems like the ones down south in Florida and stuff are smaller, and versus the ones like up in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, they say Patty was like a grandmother or something, right?
Yeah, I think so. And because she had breasts, and breasts aren't really associated with primates. They are with humans. We're the only ones that really focus on the breasts. But breasts really aren't much of a thing in the primate world because they're not really needed other than for nursing. So it does make you wonder, with Patty having breasts, was there a young one around? And that's why that's why she was walking in a way that all the attention would go with her. And so the others can go off that way, because I think Bigfoot's smart enough. They know that if they throw a rock over that way, they can escape that way. And because all of our attention is going to be off over there. So
like they used to do in the war movies, the Americans would like throw a rock when they're like trying to attack the Japanese, and then they would get the sniper.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, it seems like they exist within the layers of nature, and they're very good at being concealed within it and utilizing it to their advantage, to the point modern man still to this day cannot find them. And that's quite the feat. And that's it really kind of makes you wonder what we're actually dealing with out there, who these beings are, where they actually come from.
Or sometimes do you have the thought, Brent, and I'm sure you do, that it just doesn't exist? There aren't any photographs. There's not really any evidence. And do you sometimes wrestle with the fact that maybe these things just don't exist, and it's all just misidentification and hoax and
mental illness and all that?
Yes. Yeah.
I wrestle with that all the time, and wondering, what am I doing? It's like, goes back to what I was talking about with the search and rescue. It's like, gosh, I could really be doing something that's so beneficial for so many people, and doing that, but instead I'm putting a lot of time into looking for Bigfoot, something that I don't even know if is real, but like all the stuff that people are presenting is just so bad. Like the evidence is so bad. It's like, wow, you're really thinking that's a Bigfoot? It's really disappointing, to the point where it's like, man, I don't know if it's really worth going forward with it. And so it's a struggle all the time, and I get burned out on the subject because it's just so frustrating dealing with all these different type of people. And I'm kind of getting into that burnout stage right now. So, I mean, you're probably not going to see me as much over the course of the next many months, just because, it's kind of getting old with it. And, I need to focus more on, working with these other people, because, the group that I was a part of, they actually found a missing hiker this last year that went missing a couple of years ago, one that actually David Paulides tried to use as his missing narrative. And it's like, man, that is such a great thing. There's people out there doing such great work, doing, something like that. It's like, that's what we should be out there doing. I mean, that's why I kind of encourage Bigfooters. It's like, man, if you guys are already out there in some of these areas, maybe you should look into some of these missing people, because maybe you can help join the search and help contribute or something to it, and maybe bring some closure, because it does happen. People are found. It's just, you got to get the people together to go look for them and have it systematically done, so that you're not going over the same area over and over again.
I'll ask the same question to Dave. Dave, percentage-wise, now you've seen this thing on video and stuff. And what are your thoughts on this whole subject? Are you 100% that these things are real? We have to ask this question.
I think so, for sure.
Really?
I mean, I had that sighting last summer,
right,
down in the Comanches, and it was right at dark, and wasn't what I was expecting to see. I thought it was I was taking stuff out of my truck, getting ready to camp. I was solo camping down there, and it was across the creek from me, and it was close to dark, but it was standing just kind of at the edge of the trees, not very big. I would say no more than 4 foot tall or so. My first impression was a wild pig standing facing me because it was a kind of a grayish black color. But when I focused back on it, I could see that it was bipedal and the face on it was black, and it just shot off into the woods just immediately and did not make noise. Did not make noise. Now, is it possible it was something else? I don't know what else it could have been. Wow. So,
yeah,
I'm not a spook. And Cornell's been in the woods with me. I'm not a spooky person in the woods.
I know he isn't.
And matter of fact, next weekend, if it's not raining me out, I'm going to be camping down there by myself again at the exact location. So,
yeah, see, that's the problem that we have here. It's like winter's coming in, so we just get so much rain, and I don't mind, camping and doing the stuff in the snow, but with the rain, it just kills the audio opportunity. And it's like, man, why even go out there? So these last couple of weekends, the next weekend or two is nothing but rain. It's so frustrating because, as much as frustrating Bigfooting is, I love getting out in nature. I love just going out. I love just rock hounding, mushroom hunting. I love to try and learn all about the nature too, going out, try to identify plants and animals, trees and stuff. And there's so much more that you could do out there while you're investigating Bigfoot. Man, it's just so much fun. I love going out there. It's true when they say it's like therapy, just an hour or two out in nature is like a good therapy session. I always recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. Like camping with friends is one of the best experiences you'll have. Just camping.
Oh, there's no such thing as a bad outing. It's all, unless you have a bad accident or something. But Cornell, I want to go back. You was asking me about the 100%. I think the better question would be, and I would direct this at Brent as well. Of course, I've been looking into this subject for like 25 plus years. What percentage of reported sightings do you think are the real deal? And then it goes back to, and I think Brent addressed it too, was obviously you're going to have some people that just like to make up a good story. But then there's some that are misidentification. I mean, that's real easy to do. But then you've got those that, and I've investigated sightings by a couple of off-duty police officers that had a face-to-face with one up in the northeast corner of the state by Grand Lake. And I was fortunate enough to get on that location just within a few days. Only one officer would even take me back down in there, and he left before it got dark and left me down there to stay the rest of the night by myself. And he eventually went back, but they were so shook up by it. They were this thing had been crawling up this side of a berm in the woods, watching them while they camped. And when they thought it was an armadillo, and they went around, they was going to shoot the armadillo, and this thing stood up its full height right in front of them. Now, I believe 100% that they saw something that scared them out of those river bottoms. Now, I did not see the Bigfoot there, but whatever they saw, if it wasn't a Bigfoot, it was a misidentification.
Yeah. I think personally, it's only about 5-10% that I would find very interesting. It's really tough to say just by hearing it. That's why, again, I always recommend try to gather as much information as possible. But you can also start to tell when a story kind of goes fishy and stuff. You start to pick up on those signs too. And so I'm about 5-10% or so of the reports coming in that are actually legitimate. I think other people are just so new to the woods that they don't really understand what they're seeing as far as animal behavior or nature behavior, with it. But I find, like I say, I find more credible sightings outside of the Bigfoot community in those hiking groups and outdoor groups. Yeah,
because they'd be less biased, or what's the term you use? Confirmation bias or whatever.
Yeah, they have less.
Another thing too is on these stories, you see them go fishing. I mean, I've been on the ground floor of some of these investigations that were like 20 years ago, and to hear those same stories told now that vaguely remember or resemble the original. You're like, my gosh. Like there's one of a truck driver seeing one run across him back in the late 90s or so. Now that story is told that truck driver saw it carrying a dead one over its shoulders. And I'm like, that's not the original. That's not the original story.
It's like that telephone game that we used to play as kids. That's exactly what it is. It's the story gets repeated, and then somebody adds a little extra to it, a little extra flavor, and next thing you know, it's repeated as that's just the general narrative with it. It's really kind of unfortunate. I'm sure you've seen. Has the Bigfoot community changed at all in the last 20, 25 years, Dave?
Yes. That's a whole nother interview, but yeah. Now, when I first started what got me into it is a doctor of veterinary medicine that my mother worked for back in the 60s. And he actually briefly corresponded with Roger Patterson in the mid 60s before the Patterson film. And he had heard what Roger was doing, and he volunteered his services as a veterinarian to go with them if they ever, would like to have him along. Of course, that never worked out time-wise and stuff, but Roger sent him a copy of his book. And of course, I was a little kid. I was just enthralled by it, but in the mid 1990s, I was in my late 20s at the time is when I started really going off and actively investigating these sightings. I very briefly did some field work for the BFRO in the late 90s. Actually, it was only like one summer, and it was only like a couple of cases. And then I'm a fiercely independent individual, so that didn't last very long, and nothing against it. But at that time, back to your question, the BFRO had the most comprehensive database of sightings on the web, period. And then they still do, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think they do.
But there was so much competition between what organizations were then, as far as wanting to be the only one taken seriously. You had the BFRO, you had some Southern group called like the GCBRO or something like that. And then you had, there were several of those. I even had a website that I called southernbigfoot.com. And that's what, the Travel Channel got a hold of me for, to do that documentary with them. And I thought they did pretty well.
Yeah, I remember seeing you on that. I remember I recognized you from one of the documentaries that you worked on.
Now, I'll blow the lid off two things on there that's not as it seemed. And this is the only thing that really aggravated me, was there's a part where the man shoots his pistol in the woods a couple of times. That was that law enforcement officer I was telling you about that left me down there by myself the first night, but then he came back. He was not shooting at anything. What you don't see off camera, there is a berm in the woods there. And the producer said, would you mind taking out your pistol and firing a couple of shots into that? Okay, but the way it was edited, it looked like he was shooting off at the thing. Another was a gentleman in the film called Tim Harjo, a big Native American man that I knew. He died of COVID last year, but he's up on the mountain. He's pointing across the mountain at something black over on the other ridge. And the cameraman that was there got hold of me on the walkie-talkie. I'm at the bottom of that mountain. He wanted me to come up there. It took me like 30 minutes to find him. And this is in the Combishes. And I got there. He says, what is that over there? I said, on which side of that cow are you talking about? He said, he goes, that's a cow? And I said, yeah, it's actually a Holstein, if you want to be specific about it. But anyway, Tim, he was looking across, and I guess my eyesight at that time was better. Both of them saw a black object over there. But when they put that in the documentary, they didn't say it was Bigfoot but they didn't say it was a cow either. So, but
left it ambiguous up to the people.
Yeah, compared to the documentaries I see today, it was head and shoulders above on it, I think.
I didn't know they had. Do they have? I'm an immigrant. I don't know, but do they have wild cows in America?
Have what?
Wild cows?
Oh, cows.
Yeah.
Well, I've had some run over me. We have
no, but seriously, do they have wild cows?
Not
I'm not
down
sure.
here where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't think that they were ever wild. The cows. There might be some cows that are loose.
Okay.
We have wild
Are
horses
you
here,
talking?
though.
No, I'm saying
You're talking about wild breeds of cows, Cornell.
just cows like running about. Because I've heard of the different stories where people are like, well, I saw a Bigfoot, and somebody else is like, well, no, that's just a cow, and I'm like, well, where I'm from, cows are always like in a pasture with a fence. There's no way for them to escape, and they're not like horses where they just run wild and go through the woods and stuff.
Are you talking like open range?
Yeah, we don't really have open range in Ireland. I mean, but in the woods and stuff, you don't really get cows running about in the woods, do you? Maybe I'm totally off base here.
Well, it depends. If you look at the Expedition Bigfoot show, on their first season, they had a thermal hit, and they're like, "Oh wow, it's a Bigfoot," when in fact it's the rear end of a cow that's out there in the forest. It's like an open graze. It's still within their property, but not in a fenced property. It's just kind of open graze. They just kind of go where they go within their property themselves.
We'll talk about Expedition Bigfoot then, because you told me about that, and that was mind-blowing.
Oh yeah. If anybody doesn't know about Expedition Bigfoot, like season 1, it's all on a ranch. It's all in a ranch facility. Like the mine that they went to, it's actually a gold mine, old gold mine. It's a tourist attraction. There's actually tourist people going in the mine. That cemetery, there's pictures of people on their website, because you can go on the Anton Ranch website in Oregon, and you can see all these places that they filmed Expedition Bigfoot, like the cemetery, mine, and all that stuff. And you can go see it's a tourist attraction. But they're like, oh, we use this algorithm and blah blah blah, and that's how they found this location. The reality is they chose that place probably because it's a lot cheaper, because it's a private place that they can rent out, versus trying to get the permits to go film out in the wild, which I'm guessing is a little more difficult, probably a little more pricey, versus going and filming on a private property, which is why I think they do is their second season, I think, is on a private property as well.
God.
But yeah, it was kind of a farce in a way. It's like LARPing, live action role play. That's what Expedition Bigfoot kind of was. It's like if Bigfoot, if anybody was ever going to do a real serious Bigfoot expedition, that's how it kind of go. But it's all for show. It's not real. Like the behind the scenes stuff is really questionable. Like the marble that they found, there's a high likelihood that the producers hoaxed stuff, like the shelters and whatever, because they needed content for the show. Because their goal is to have a TV show that they can produce for seasons, so they have to fill it with content. And if they're a new show, I could see producers kind of doing some shenanigans to help create content, like with that with the chimp DNA stuff that the second season that they collected. Well, they also had chimp pheromones there, so they had chimp DNA on them, and so it makes you wonder if maybe somebody just planted the DNA, or if somebody just contaminated the area. And so it's really hard to trust the TV shows when they're out there looking for Bigfoot, because again, if you dig into it a lot more, and there's videos breaking this down that talk about how it's actually on Anton Ranch, and how it took Russ like 6 days to hike up this hill, right? There's a girl who did it in flip-flops, right? in like a couple hours. It's like so ridiculous. And how he repels down the cliff and stuff. And when it's like, well, the cameraman's waiting for you down there. Did he just like walk down the hill there? But yeah, they got to make it entertaining, because Dave, I'm sure you guys know that Bigfoot research or investigation is incredibly boring. There's not a lot that you can really make a compelling episode unless you start doing some shenanigans, which I think is why some channels resort to hoaxing, because that's the only way to get content. That's the only way to really kind of get videos for people to keep watching. So they fake it to make it. And I'm quite the opposite. I don't really care if people subscribe or like or anything.
That is an excellent point, Eamon, Chris. If a person's not aroused by ape pheromones, why would a Bigfoot be? And I'm sure Brent has his own opinions and the question of what these things are. I personally don't go with the opinion that they are remnants of Gigantopithecus. To me, that doesn't fit. I mean, if the Native American stories in the Pacific Northwest that they have in the past abducted the occasional native girl and made a viable baby with it, they would have to be a type of a human to do that, right? I mean, you can't cross an orangutan with a human. Other than that just being weird, it's not possible. So yeah, if these things are a type of human, why would they be aroused by a chimpanzee pheromone?
Yeah.
That's a good point. Very good point.
Yeah. For me, I don't really know what they are. I don't try to lead down like, oh, I think they're Gigantopithecus or they're Neanderthals or anything, because again, you are creating a narrative that might not be true, and you don't want to start building a story, a belief off something that's like, I don't even know if it's true or not. For me, I think they exist somewhere on the branch of life, and wherever they exist is where they are, and we just need to find out what they are before we can even jump to any sort of conclusions. But they do seem to be more human-like than ape-like, for sure. They seem to have some sort of cognitive ability that they developed that other primates didn't. Maybe that's where the magic mushrooms come in. Maybe because psychedelic mushrooms have now proven to show that it develops your brain, your synaptic connections and everything.
Stone depth theory.
Yeah. So it's possible Bigfoot has gotten another level of intelligence that he used through natural means that diverged it from the other apes, including us, species. So I don't know. Just a hypothesis.
Well, and that's the thing, a lot of this goes back to throwing ideas on the table. And I want to get this out. I know with the whole thing with Chris's video and stuff with the whole porcupine and all that stuff going on, you shouldn't be afraid to put your ideas out there for fear of it making somebody mad. I mean, throwing opposable ideas out on the table, that's how we learn. And whether it's the nature of what these things are, an honest somebody has an honest differing opinion than me, I welcome it. I want to hear it. I can learn things. All of us can.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to get so committed to it being one thing. I mean, we don't know. So otherwise, don't get mad at each other when somebody doesn't share the same opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, with that, I thought I was, professional in a way. Like I didn't attack, didn't call names, just like, hey, this, isn't what you think it is. You're kind of mistaken. And yeah, right. People need to understand that, when somebody says that, they're not calling them a hoaxer. They're not being mean to them. They're not being derogatory towards them. They just have a different opinion and are expressing it to you. And how you react to that's your fault. If you're going to get all mad and angry and dismiss the other person, then that's kind of on you as they come to you.
And if I put something up and somebody says, no, that's not it, that's fine. If they're going to be a jerk about it, that's a totally different deal altogether. But
like the name calling and stuff like that. I mean, that's not necessary because I think we all believe that Chris thinks it's a Bigfoot. It's just mistaken. And for me, I like to use examples to help try and show what stuff that I talk about, and I use myself as an example first to put myself out there to say, hey, I was wrong. Look at me. it's okay. And so with that, my whole thing was just to use it as an example. It's like, hey, here's another
Right.
example of priming and confirmation bias, and as we all see, it's a porcupine. And I didn't really think it was going to get that much traction, because I just thought he was either going to ignore it altogether or just delete it or something. But apparently so many people, other people, even his followers, are like, nah, dude, you're off on that one. But
Right. And you know, I think, you know, take all of the politics or whatever you want to call it out of it. I think both of you guys, you did a good job of showing why you believed it was a porcupine, and Chris came back with his videos picking apart why he thought it wasn't, you know. And if you took all of the negative things out of both sides, I think you guys were both, you know, honestly showing why. I think Chris, you know, believes that's what it is, and whatnot. So,
yeah, I'm not.
Just the spirit of trying to learn it and all that, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah,
But
and
now this. Go ahead.
Yeah, and again, I just thought it was a good learning experience for those coming in to say, you know, hey, we got to watch out for the priming confirmation bias, and that, you know, some influencers, you know, can be mistaken with their conclusions because of their biases and stuff. And you know, it's just kind of what it is. I just you know, I don't know. I can't control what people think of me as far as for doing it or saying it. It's just, you know, it's just kind of what it is. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
we said, and I think we did talk about a lot of other things too. And of course, I hope we can have Chris on the show sometime. I'd like to, you know,
yeah, you know,
he's got to say as well, you know.
Yeah, because that would be great. It's like a discussion, a conversation. It's like, oh, hey, why do you believe this? Oh, why do I believe this? Two adults having conversations, disagreeing about something, but still have a conversation, man. You know, stuff like that is very possible. We just got to not get emotionally attached to the evidence, and you know, just be an adult with the other person, because conversations like that is really going to advance the subject, because that's when we get the most insight of what's actually going on in the subject, and not the fluff that everybody's falling for.
Right. And I know you told me some of the shows you were into, so you're younger than me by a bit, but one thing that as I've gotten older, I'm very comfortable with the fact that everybody doesn't agree with me, and that's fine. So
yeah, well, I like with this whole thing, it's like he put up another video, and it's like, I'm not going to do another video. It's like, you know, it's just redundant at that point. And at this point, people are going to believe what they want to believe, and move on. And you know, all we can do is the ones who are aware is learn from it and move on from it.
And it's not going to change the world either way you think about that. So
that's true.
I think you did a good job of putting your opinion of why you believe it's the one thing, and Chris did on his. I just wish that the nastiness didn't come out on a few other shows and stuff. That's not helpful. But anyway, man, this has been a heck of a show, Cornell.
Oh yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of
great.
I want to join the search and rescue team now.
I
Bigfoot.
Yeah, I you know, even work with the families afterwards, because they need help too. Like some of these families don't even live in the area. You know, like with the Sam Sayers, her family lived over back east, so they flew over and did what they could and tried to rally the people together. But a lot of these families don't have that opportunity to get people out there, and it's something that I think going forward, it's something that I'm really getting a big passion for, of wanting to pursue that equally as much as this, because there's just so many people out there. I mean, going out with these families, like I would go out with the families, you know, I'm not going to go there because I'll probably start crying or something. So, but anyways, if you're an able body out there and you love helping people, love being out in the woods, you know, maybe you could be somebody that can help others in that regards. And I encourage anybody and everybody to check it out and consider it while you're out there.
Yeah, I would like to do something with abused children. I would love to be able. I don't know how to get into that, but I would love to be able to help kids out that are in that kind of situation. I just don't know the way in. This Bigfoot stuff's fun, but really, there's more important stuff.
There is
involving us humans, and I'd rather get into
the abused children thing. That is heartbreaking because I've seen some of that more than I wanted to in uniform, and that's.
But with your love of nature, Cornell, you could bridge that by having trips, that they can go on, out camping trips. Let them be out there in nature. Let them learn how to rock hound, what to look for with rock hounding or trees, and all these different activities that they could do out there. So, there's a way to blend it in so you can bring to the table something you enjoy, like nature and doing all that, and working with those kids, and especially in those situations and out there, and so you can bridge that. So I definitely encourage you to look into that and see what opportunities there are, and because there's so much more to life than the whole Bigfooting thing. Bigfooting's fun, it's a good hobby and all that, but it can open us up to so much more in life that we didn't even realize at the time.
Well, like you said in a show the other night, the whole Bigfooting thing introduces you to so much other stuff, like mushroom hunting, or like I'm learning about different trees. I never knew about trees. Where I'm from, there's not many trees, but and Dave told me about this. Dave's very into the nature thing, and I'm walking around, and I'm like, what kind of tree is this? And I have an app, and it tells me what type of tree it is. And I'm on a hike with my kids, and I go 100 feet, and there's 10 different types of trees. And then there's cranberries and stuff. And I'm looking at all this other stuff. So it's an unintended consequence of Bigfooting that I'm learning all this other stuff, So it's fun, But yeah, the whole getting in contact with these groups that have kids, I just don't know how to do it. My wife's a therapist and she deals with them, but I just don't know the way in.
I think it would first start with creating an organization with standards and procedures in place for these kids to go join into it, like a foundation of sorts, and just have the structures and the structure within it to protect the kids while they're out there, so the parents and kids know what they're getting into, and so there's definitely ways to go about it, but it's a good place to start is to look into creating a foundation so people know that the foundation exists, so these kids can start going, and what you fill your foundation with is up to you, which I'm guessing might be nature related, taking them out to learn the trees, the rock hounding, the fishing, the nature, because it's a proven fact nature is like therapy, so it's going to do so much for those kids.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing. I mean, that could be your life work, your magnum opus right there, because you would be affecting so many people in a positive way that Bigfooting would never get you that, but doing stuff like that will.
Here's a question. Life is a Flyway says, Dave, any thought of mass crops as a food source that you've seen? I think you're probably talking about, have I seen any evidence of Bigfoot using somebody's gardens and things for a food source? And no, but I mean, it would make sense, somebody had a big patch of corn or something growing out there and they was around, that'd be an easy source of food.
Well,
I've not seen anything like that myself, but
it could also leave prints too. So they would also have to be careful with what they kind of take, because I think that they probably cache their food. They would have to somewhere.
I have seen now when I investigated the what's called the casino footage up in the western part of the state, there was a long string of this thing's footprints going through a plowed field, and that's about the closest thing. But that was on its way from a wooded area to the grease trap that it was trying to get into. And those were like, if I remember right, about 16-inch footprints. It was dry dirt, so they weren't real detailed, but they were very big. But that was agricultural land there, so I mean, but nothing was growing in it at the time.
Yeah, you know, I see all these farms and stuff, like cattle farms or pig farms, llama farms, buffalo farms, all butting up to the Cascade Mountain Range. And I wonder, and as I drive by them, I wonder if Bigfoot goes onto these landowners and take their cattle and stuff. Because I know that, you know, they reintroduced the red wolf here and or the gray wolf. And so it's, you know, it's protected in a way. Locally in the state is protected, so they try to work with the ranch owners to minimize the wolf cattle contact, you know. So I wonder if Bigfoot does come down and steal cattle. If they do, like, why aren't they getting caught? I don't know. It's just something to wonder about.
I don't know about that. Now, this same person, Life is a Flyway, mentioned white oak, acorns, walnuts, butternuts, and such. I got a recent report from last year of a woman observing a large and a small Bigfoot picking up pecans, if the report is true. And that was not far from where I live right now, here in southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah, something, a project that I've been wanting to do but haven't done yet is go in my local area here, is go through everything of calorie sources for the Bigfoots to utilize, be it the tree bark or certain tree bark or lichens or slugs or, you know, a grouse, you know, because I can easily see them throwing a rock at a grouse and like killing it instantly. Same with a deer, you know, they probably don't need to run. Chase went down.
They are apparently rock throwers.
Yeah. So I could see them using a rock to take down some prey. And but that's something I've been really curious about. Is like, what is that? Because everybody's like, oh, you know, is there enough food out there for Bigfoot to exist and live off of? And I really kind of want to tackle that as a project of like, go through the calories. Like, okay, so this slug will give them like 20 calories, and you know, just develop or find all the food sources that they can utilize for themselves to survive without any outside help of sorts. Because I believe the calories are out there year round for sure. Water's not an issue here, but I you know, in the lower elevations, there's always food. There's always deer, grouse, rabbits, you know, all sorts of opportunities for them to eat.
I look at it kind of like a bear. A bear is an omnivore and of general size of a Sasquatch. So I would think if they can sustain a bear, there should be the food source to sustain another omnivore of that size.
Yeah, but with the bears, you know, a lot of the bears go into hibernation, which makes you wonder if Bigfoot would go into a sort of hibernation, maybe not for months, but maybe for days or weeks on end. Because, you know, we used to hibernate back, you know, it's still within our genes to hibernate. That's why some people get depressed during the winter season. And so it's still within us, deep, hidden, recessed, but it makes you wonder if Bigfoot has that same ability, which you think it would be a really good advantage for them, especially during those long months. And maybe that's why we don't find the bodies, because they're out hibernating somewhere underground or wherever, you know, and we just don't find them, and they just get buried forever.
See, I learned something tonight, even more, that humans used to hibernate. I didn't know that before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a recessed gene that exists within us.
I hibernate
like
3 o'clock every day. Sometimes I got to pull off the highway and just like pull into a Walmart parking lot and go to sleep for like 30 minutes.
Hey, good power nap, man. Works wonders.
I love it.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
All right. Wow, 2 hours.
Well,
You're one
man,
of
2
my
hours.
longest interviews.
Woohoo!
Man, Brent, I really appreciate you coming on. That was great.
Thanks for having me on. I love having these Bigfoot conversations, the diverse over different subjects, different things, and bouncing ideas off each other and experiences.
Well, we threw
so
some out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a good exchange of ideas there. I enjoy that.
Oh, same here. That's how we learn, and it's what we need is these type of discussions, so we can kind of push forward, learn what's what, so we can go out there and get the evidence and experiences that are truly Bigfoot related.
Yeah, we have a deck of cards like the soldiers had in Operation Desert Storm. Was it Desert? What was the last one? Enduring Freedom? I can't remember the 2003 invasion of Iraq, and they had a deck of cards, and they had certain people that they had to kill or capture. Dave and I have that with Bigfooting. We have who's next? We have a certain amount of people we want to get through. We've got Alex. We've got Thomas Steenberg. We've got Chris Reinhardt.
Thomas on.
Yeah, I want to have Thomas on, but we have a lot of people. We've got a deck of cards with a lot of people on, so we're just getting through them slowly but surely.
Yeah,
Thomas, he's kind of
job.
one of the old. I'm sorry.
Oh, you guys are doing a great job with it. Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas. I consider him kind of one of the old school top researchers in this. Seems like do you know him yourself?
He's like the Columbo of Bigfoot.
Yeah. Thomas Steenberg. He's one of the original OGs that he came up with a very good thing for the Bigfoot community of stick to the facts and never deviate from the facts. Right. And that Thomas came up with that because he's never seen one, but he has a passion like we do of out there trying to find out what's going on. And he had the opportunity to work with the John Greens and Renee DeHindens and all those people. So he has stories of like when Renee DeHinden pulled a shotgun on John Green, for leaving him out in the forest one time. It's like, wow, dude, you get all this crazy stuff that happened back in the day. So when you have Thomas on, make sure you ask him about like John Green pulling a shotgun or getting a shotgun. Sure. And all those other stories. That's like, wow, that's, I just love whenever Thomas is on a show because you just get to listen to stuff that, we never knew about. Dave, I'm sure you got a ton of stories equally that over the last 20, 25 years that you could, share and really do all that. So you guys are probably going to have a really amazing conversation.
I got to one of my favorite ones is back, good grief. Of course, he's passed away now. I got to have a sit down conversation with John Bindernagel.
Oh yeah.
Bindernagel back in 2003 at the very first Texas Bigfoot conference. He actually drove there from British Columbia. Wow. He made a wildlife viewing trip out of it. And between things, I was actually able to sit down and have a conversation. Super nice fella.
Oh yeah.
Smoky Crabtree was still living at the time, and he was there. Do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
The whole Legend of Boggy Creek. And,
yeah.
That was really neat. And they're both gone now, So.
Yeah. And that's the other good thing about this subject is, outside of looking for Bigfoot is the experiences and the people that you meet. I've met so many amazing people. I've had so many amazing experiences with the people in this subject. And it's just, I look forward to going and meeting more people, even going to conferences. And I know a lot of people think those are taboo, but, I love the festivals where they celebrate the Bigfoot phenomenon and the people that go to those festivals because it's so much fun, so enlightening. It's just, it does have a beautiful side to it. This Bigfoot subject does.
Yeah, I've met more friends through the Bigfoot subject, and that's probably why I keep doing a podcast on it than I have in real life. I'm not really into sport. I'm not really into stuff that people are into in everyday life. And I start this Bigfoot podcast, and all of a sudden I'm meeting people like Dave and yourself and, Kerry and Daniela and stuff. And there's a ton of people I've met, like Mark Copeland, and, and you form friendships, and they're real. They're not just like internet stuff, you actually sometimes meet these people and you have phone conversations with them, and it's very. I like it, because I've had, since I came to America, I've had a problem forming because I came here when I was 30. So, all my friends are back home, and I'm trying to like form friendships with people here. And then I'm having kids, and it was just a long time without really meeting people that were into the same stuff as me. And the whole podcast thing was a way for me to connect with people. And it's not just Bigfoot. It's like conspiracy theories, aliens, ghosts, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And just talking to these people, I think outside the box, it's been really refreshing to just throw shit out there and have people react to it.
Well, look at this. Cornell's sitting up in Massachusetts. You're in Washington State, and I'm down here in the southeast Oklahoma. That's quite a lot of territory covered there.
Oh yeah,
Cornell. I'm sorry, man. Cornell's got the coolest accent, though.
I never thought I'd be. When I first met Dave, we drove and we drove and we drove into these mountains in Oklahoma. When I was a kid, I never thought I'd be driving into the middle of this state that I'd never heard of when I was a kid. But I mean, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know what it looked like or anything. And I was like just sitting in the car, and he keeps driving and driving and driving on this dirt road in the middle of the mountains, and it's pitch black. And I'm like, "You stay here by yourself at night?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, Jesus Christ. When we got there and we're setting up camp, and this is a known Bigfoot encounter area, and I'm scared, Like Dave's walking around with his Glock on his hip, not for Bigfoot, but for people. And we're setting up camp and stuff, but I was very nervous because not that I think that Bigfoot's going to kill me, but if I have an encounter, with this 8-foot creature that isn't supposed to exist, even if it's not going to kill me, I'm still going to like have a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have a reaction. It was one walking around. Well, I think there was something on 2 legs walking around the outside of my tent, and I was terrified. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, and these guys are in the tent right beside me. And
me and my son Elijah is with us.
Yeah. And I heard this thing crunch, 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 and nothing in our campsite was disturbed the next morning. And I lay there awake, and I'm listening to this thing, and people are like, "Why didn't you get your phone and record it and stuff?" And I couldn't even move. I put my hands over my ears because I just wanted to go back to sleep and forget it was happening, even though I'm down there to, possibly have a Bigfoot encounter. But I was so terrified, and I did that, and I could hear my heart just thumping in my chest. And I was like, I don't remember being that scared ever since I was a kid, since I heard this, what I thought was a banshee. And after a while, I got the courage up to yell to Dave and his son, but it probably heard us snoring, so it came in, and then I probably stopped snoring, and that's when I was listening to it, so it probably got the heck out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking, but I couldn't hear it like leaving because I had my hands over my ears. So I took my hands away from my ears and shouted Dave, and we all got out of the tents, and there was nothing there. But I slept in his truck the rest of the night. I was so damn scared.
Yeah, actually, I use fake snoring in the decoy tent to help maybe lure them in. Because you always hear that. It seems like once the snoring starts happening, that's when they feel more comfortable coming in.
And that's the first night that Dave ever slept in a tent in this area.
I don't like sleeping in tents. If there's precipitation falling, I just like to put a tarp up. Yeah, I said it's a sack lunch for a predator. But that night it was just so cold. And,
but before that, Brent, the whole woods went. Remember what it was like that night before, even before sundown? It was so quiet. The place was dead. It was like a tomb. But we had the spring peepers.
It's a definite location that if it's not deer season, you're not going to run into anybody. Very seldom down there. Strangeland asked this question. I think it's relevant. It says, Dave, have you ever been to Area X where NAWAC research is done? Yes, I have actually. The first time I was there was before that group even existed, and I had been down in the around close to Honeby, close to Octavia, and there was an older gentleman there, and I asked him. I said, if you wanted to go somewhere that you'd have a better chance of seeing a Bigfoot if they were around there, where would it be? And it's not called Area X. It's a wildlife preserve. And I'm not going to give the exact location out of respect for the group that's down there researching, but it is extremely remote. It's more remote, Cornell, than the place we go to. And I wouldn't even, then the path that I took to get down there at that time is closed off now, and you've got to go in at a different area. But
did you guys see? Did you guys see when Nowak was on the Lowe Files? Rob Lowe and his TV show. You saw that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I don't. The only person that's a part of that I know personally is the biologist Alton Higgins. I think probably about the first time I went down there, it was with one local that led me down into that area. And man, if you don't know where you're getting, you'll get lost down there. But let's see. I think it's either the second or third time I was down there. Alton was with me at that time. Alton Higgins, which he's still part of that, I guess. I mean, we're not like friends or nothing, but acquaintance, I would say. But an interesting, very interesting. I'm sorry.
Oh, Kathy and Bob are part of the.
Yeah, she refused.
I don't know them.
I texted her and asked her, did she want to be on my show? And she's like, where did you hear about me? And I'm like, well, Richter mentioned you on his show. And she's like, oh, that's where you heard me from? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, you should be reading my books and stuff and researching me. I'm not interested. Sorry. And I'm like, well, I usually do that after somebody says yes. I take a couple of weeks and then I delve into them and research them. But she was like just not interested in being on the show. Maybe if you ask her, I want
to tell you something interesting about that Area X. Of course, Cornell, you're old enough. Do you remember the whole thing about Y2K going to happen? The world computers are going to shut down. We're going to be in the apocalypse. Jesus is going to come back. The Antichrist is going to attack all of us. And
nuclear weapons are going to go off.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, during you know what, you can see I don't take that seriously. But during that time, some local people, and I don't get it because all that area is so remote anyway, but a few people actually went down in what is being called Area X, and in the late 90s built some cabins, because when the apocalypse came, their idea was that they would escape down in there and live hidden off the grid. And you know, I gotta give it to them. If you just want to get away, that would be the place to go, because it's down in like this big valley. There's a creek running through it, and there was somebody. Our UPS driver goes down in that area and bear hunts, and he said I think one of the cabins is not there anymore, but he said that group had actually bought one of the cabins down there for like a base camp or something. That part's hearsay, but I actually stayed in one of those cabins one night a long, long time ago. So when's Rob Lowe going to be on Into the Void? Well, I'll talk to him tomorrow and see when he's. No, I don't know.
Send him a text.
Yeah, I'll send him a text, you know.
I remember him from just being in some kind of porn scandal, right? I don't really know about the Rob Lowe Bigfoot connection. I just remember.
Oh, he loves.
Dude, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, Rob Lowe loves Bigfoot. Yeah, he loves the Bigfoot subject. So he did like him and his son went out. And if you haven't seen it, you should really check it out. He went out. He went out to Nowak's area and you know, and some other areas, I think, too, just checking out the whole Bigfooting stuff, him and his sons, you know, and it was a great experience for him. And I highly encourage anybody to check that out, because it was really well put together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm like
that whole
celebrities that believe in Bigfoot are few and far between. Like, have you ever listened to Joe Rogan's show? He wanted to believe in it, and he had Survivor Man,
Les Stroud.
yeah, Les Stroud on, and he argued with him that it couldn't be possible. And I know that, like, Joe Rogan goes out there and hunts and stuff, and I don't know why he can't cross that bridge of his position seems to be from ignorance more than research. You know
Well,
what I
no,
mean?
he was actually a hardcore believer in Bigfoot. It's just
Right.
once he started looking into it, because he did a show too on Bigfoot, or he
Yeah.
did a show, yeah, and
Joe Rogan questions everything.
yeah. So, and I think that's when he started getting disingenuous with the whole Bigfoot community. You know, because he went out there with Matt Johnson, and not the best representation for the Bigfoot community.
That's right. Yeah, I remember.
And Todd Standing.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, well,
That-
Todd,
Yeah.
I don't believe a word he says.
Oh yeah. He seems to have Ivan Mark syndrome too.
I believe Todd when he says he's from Canada.
Well, that part about the Bigfoot running up the hill, from what I heard, I have no evidence of this, of course, but what I heard was it was somebody running backwards and then they played it forwards. That's why it looked kind of strange, but I don't know if that's true or not. But I don't believe in I don't believe Todd Standing. I mean those Blinky and the other one with the weird looking burn mask on was and people argue with me all the time about this on Facebook, and it comes up again and again and again on Reddit and Facebook, and you know, without sounding like a dick, it's hard not to sound like a dick actually sometimes when you try to refute these things. You know, I'm very I don't believe in. I'm like all of these things that people attach onto the mystery, the pile of mystery onto a mystery. I just want to know if it exists first, and then we'll figure out what it's capable of. But people, you have the new age group, the boomers and stuff that have this thing where I don't know if it's just the boomers, but it's like very boomer thinking where they have they attach a mystery onto a mystery, you know, portals, and you know, then you've got the Native American thing where people are afraid to question that because they don't want to seem prejudiced. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I'm open to whatever life has to offer. I just need to examine the evidence and, you know, come to my own conclusion. I can't be told what's reality or what to believe in. I have to go find out for myself.
My general rule is if somebody wants you to pay them money and they guarantee you that they can take you and you'll have a Bigfoot experience, I'm not going to be spending any of my money that direction. Because if there was anybody, if you could guarantee that you could take somebody out and they would have a Bigfoot experience or sighting, we would have one in a zoo by now if it was that easy.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead, we have the best I can put together, an extremely intelligent, extremely elusive forest-dwelling being.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best description of them. We don't really know what they are, how they exist. They just are out there. We only know what they don't do, and they don't get caught. That's what they don't do.
Well, there was a kid that went out with Todd. He wasn't from Vice. It was kind of a Vice-type reporter, and he went out there with him, and he saw a Bigfoot, like a gorilla hand in his back seat. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah, he did a whole video kind of like ripping on Todd a little bit.
And there was a chick who was kind of one of Todd's what's the word for it? Apostles. And she was like, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know what and she was very unsure of the whole thing. But she had been hired by Todd to hang out with him and check this out. And she was even unsure. And he saw this Bigfoot hand. And he's like, oh, it's my brother-in-law's. He was doing a Halloween prank on me or something.
Yeah, I've actually met Todd Standing before.
Really?
Back in 2015. Yeah, he came to Seattle with his documentary, very rough cut of his documentary. And it was a private, or it wasn't a private showing, but a limited showing at a theater in downtown Seattle. It was only for like 1 or 2 nights. And so I went and watched it and met him. He is a very difficult person to know, to talk to associate with, just because of his personality. It's
He's
his
guarded.
way. Yeah, it's his way or the highway. Nobody else knows anything else about Bigfoot other than what he knows, and it all revolves around him and stuff.
Your
But
answer.
yeah, it's he's quite the character. Definitely quite the character. One of my first introductions actually into the Bigfoot subject. I saw it, because that's when I was like, gosh, I really need a hobby, and I was kind of embarrassed to admit that I liked Bigfoot and stuff. So I slowly kind of creeped into it, and that was one of the first event things that I went to. Was that it was November 2015.
You found him disingenuous?
Yeah, and really high on himself, and to the point I couldn't even go out to the forest with this guy. This guy would drive me crazy. He's very triggering, I guess
Really?
you could say. Yeah, Todd Standing, yeah.
And
Yeah.
does he have kids?
Yeah, actually, his son almost threw up on me by accident because he was sick. Because I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, because he brought his whole family with him. They were there with him the entire time, out there selling tickets with them, in there, sitting in there and stuff. And yeah, so apparently we were sitting on the same. There wasn't that many people there. Sitting on the same row, and his son was getting really sick, and it's like, oh, hey man, are you okay and stuff? And he's like, so he's like, oh, my dad over here, and he went over there, and it was Todd standing over there by the entrance. He wasn't sitting down watching the documentary. He was standing up by the entrance.
Todd was
there.
standing.
Yeah, and that's where he went, was over there, and it's like, oh yeah, that's his son.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, but his whole family was there. The family was supporting him, and that whole thing. So it was interesting. It's one of the things that also really kind of hooked me into the Bigfoot community, because I believed him at first, and then I realized he's not so honest, to the point where I think his whole lawsuit that he did a year or 2 ago was just a guerrilla marketing technique to help sell his Bigfoot documentary that was coming out on Netflix. Because his whole thing was, if you listen to Todd, his whole thing was to try and get more documentaries funded by Netflix. So it was really important that his Netflix was a big hit on when it was released on it, which was last year. And so what better way to bring attention to something than to get international headlines? And that's what he did. He created international headlines by saying he's going to sue Canada because they are keeping Bigfoot from everybody, and I'm doing God's work and all this stuff. And but if you read, and it's like, if you read in between the lines, especially in like the stuff that he would say in the articles, it was all to promote. It always linked back to his discovery of Bigfoot on Netflix. So it's like, and he did the guerrilla marketing technique too early in his career, when he was lost out in the woods, and search and rescue had to go find him, but he was really at the trailhead there waiting for him to show up, saying, "Oh, a bear scared me around," or something. It's like, whatever, dude.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
That's Todd. I mean, he really wants to sell and create his own narrative in the subject and have his own followers. And like a few years ago, you couldn't even talk bad about Todd Standing, or you just get lit up by people like, "Oh, you're just a troll."
Well, it's like Matthew Johnson was. Now this was on Richter's channel, but I imagine that he's done his research. But apparently, Matthew Johnson came across some Asians in the woods and brandished a weapon because he thought they were shapeshifters, because there were no Asians living in that vicinity. And he did his research, and there was like 10,000 apparently in the vicinity that he was talking about, and he pulled out his firearm. Is that true?
I heard that same story. It's illegal if he did,
right?
But I heard that same story. Yeah. So I don't know how true it is. It wouldn't surprise me knowing Matt, because Matt has a lot of the same narcissistic tendencies that Todd Standing does. So it really wouldn't surprise me if yeah, he did, and really did think it was those Bigfoots. I mean, I don't know.
And he recently moved house, and apparently the Xanue moved with him because he
Yeah,
had
well,
this whole area behind his house that the Xanue were occupying, and then he just moved house, and everybody was like, "Oh, what about the Xanue?" Well, he was like, "Well, they came with me."
yeah, well, of course. Don't want to leave him back at the old house. Yeah,
Jesus
it was something
Christ.
like that. It was something like that. I think it was just the neighbors was really complaining that he was having all these paid events at his house and created terraforming, because he would go on there and ask people, "Hey, you guys want to come do my landscaping for me?" And whole list of people willing to go help him create this whole. It was this whole trail system that these people were supposed to go walk through and have all these different experiences with the Xanue. And I'm guessing that someone pulled the, turned them in for that. And neighbors weren't very happy about having all these people there.
Well, it was
And
like the guy that was had cancer, and he was going up there to get healed by the Xanue, and he was apparently, this is according to Richter, he was neglecting modern science, and he ended up dying of cancer because he thought that the Xanue were going to save him. I don't know if that's 100%
that's true.
correct. Is that true?
That's true.
That's crazy.
But I looked more into that, and that guy, he's actually part of a cult. The guy who died, it was kind of a cult. He's actually in a documentary. I cannot recall it right now, but he's actually was in a documentary that talks about not using medicine. That's going, that's more natural. That has this crazy ideology. So it's tough to say that Matt is the sole reason why.
Right.
He didn't do the treatment and stuff, because he already had that pre-existing belief with
Okay.
somebody that knew him personally knew him, that he already had that belief that he wasn't going to go through the known medicine, that his own belief or whatever is cult or whatever it was, because it's something out of Oregon. I forgot the name of it. It's a cult out there that he was a part of, and it was really big in like 10, 20 years ago, and he was actually in a documentary. I'll ask.
There was a fantastic documentary about he was some ex-gay porn star, and he started the cult. I think it was in California actually, and they built.
This conversation is going really bad now.
Well,
makes me want to join a cult or start a cult.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. What was it called? I can't remember, but he had all these followers, and he actually they built a theater because he was really into the arts, and they would do all of these theater shows and stuff to finance the cult. It was unbelievable. I can't remember what you call it, but they would have this awakening, and this gay porn star would take them up there and make them have these awakenings. I can't remember the name of the documentary. It was one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. But yeah, people do get. I was into Scientology for a while. I was in the OTO for a while. Aleister Crowley's the Ordo Templi Orientis in my early 20s. But I got into Scientology through journalism because I started to research it, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This is like, I wonder if this is the answer to all my problems. And I came to America, and the first thing I did was go to the Scientology temple on Beacon Street in Boston. And I did a course, and I'm like, these people are nuts. And I left the cult after one course, and they wouldn't stop calling me. They called me every day for like 3 months. When you had those phones that would give you the caller ID,
Mm-hmm.
Church of Scientology every day. I love cults,
Well,
If
you're definitely in a subject. You're in a subject that has a lot of cults.
Yeah.
If the religion is started by a sci-fi writer,
Yes.
it's probably not a
But
good
it's
idea.
so adventurous.
Yeah. Hey, it's a good way to get rich.
Yeah.
Oh,
well.
Yeah. Well, that's what the Bigfoot, at least you have experience with cults, because you'll find a cult-like behavior with a belief similar to in the realm of Scientology of, a cherished belief. And so at least you'll have some experience navigating the rabbit holes that you're going to come across in your Bigfoot journey.
I say it all the time. I moderate a Facebook group, Facebook Canada, and it's one of the better ones out there because we don't allow memes, we don't allow T-shirt pictures, and Bigfoot statues in the yard, and we just deny all of that. But some stuff gets through, and I'm not arguing, but I always point out when something's BS.
Mm-hmm.
I do my best, but I can see the cult-like behavior around Bigfoot. It's pretty new agey.
Yeah, and one of those things where you pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
Go on that spectrum that I have of like, yeah, when somebody's like doing some really bad stuff, man, that's when we really need to say something. We can't stay silent and complacent.
Yeah. All right. So it's my longest podcast ever.
This is forever, but it's been good. It's been good visit.
All right, well, guys, thanks everybody for joining us. That was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Brent.
Yeah, thanks for
having.
Thanks for coming on, man. This was enlightening.
Yeah, many more to come.
Yeah, we
a lot
covered
more
a lot of
fun
stuff.
discussions to come. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and I will talk to you all soon.
Peace.
See you guys.